Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Knighted Ones podcast. This is episode number 17, and we've got another special guest this week. For those of you that have followed me for a long time, you know that I was part of the OG number one, very first podcast. Very proud to have been a part of that and radio show, along with a very, very good friend of mine named Andrew Phegley, and he's graciously decided that he's going to put up with our shenanigans for a show. So we're excited to have him on, talk some football, do a little preview on the Georgia Tech Gasparilla Bowl. And of course, as always, we got the rest of the crew minus our newest Hoops edition, our 7-footer, Ben Stout. Unfortunately, he's taking the evening off tonight because of work, which means that you won't get the entire Nightline cast. But the most important one. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the team. As always, we'll bring Josh Lazar last, but first we're going to bring on Andrew to the stage. So welcome, Andrew, to the successor of Nightline, the Knighted Ones podcast. You started it all, and so excited to have you on tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Always am willing to contribute anything that I can. I don't know how much I can contribute. Not doing the podcast for a year. I've lost a little bit of touch, but not everything. So it'll
come back to you. It's like riding a bicycle. I mean,
may not have the questions for everything, or may not have the answers for everything, but
that's all right. We don't have the answers for anything. We just make it up as we go along. So excited to have you this week. And excited to have you like a collab. And, you know, I love having Ben on. I love having you on. Love having Tre here. It's like a family reunion, and we'll continue to do that. So let's go ahead and continue the family reunion and bring on Tre Yells. Tre Yells, he just finished his bathroom break, his pregame. Welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you this week?
I'm good, man. How you guys doing? I missed
Pretty
it.
good. I was about to say something that Nobra was going to have to edit, but I'm going to leave that alone because I don't want to put him through that. He's had to do it like 3 times in a row, but I'll save that for offline. Alan Levin, a healthy Alan Levin, 2 weeks in a row. So excited to have him back. Welcome back to the show, Alan.
How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. Glad to have you back. Glad that you have your background on. And have you started putting on some of that weight yet, or are you still like down like 10 pounds from when you were sick?
I'm getting there.
Twinkies, bro. That's the way to do it. Twinkies.
Yeah.
All right. And bringing into the stage, Nobra, the producer. What's up, Nobra?
What's going on, guys?
All right. He's figuring it out. Last week was a little shaky, but he got a smile and he said, "What's going on, guys? We'll work on that as we go along." Super excited and want to thank him. He actually texted me at 6 a.m. He stayed up all night last week. So now we're setting that expectation so that you guys could have your content at 7 a.m. or 5 a.m. in the morning the next day. So as soon as you got ready for the morning grind, he was there. He had it set up very similar to what Andrew used to do, to stay up at all hours of the night and edit for us. And last but not least, Josh Lazar, welcome back to the show. No callers this week to pop, huh?
Well, there are reasons for that, and you need to have a good catchphrase like "Hey now" or something like that. Something very inventive that no one else
working
has.
on it.
You got to do an eyebrow with it if you're gonna do it. If you're gonna be like, "Hey now,"
Hey now.
You know, do a little deeper voice. There you go. Andrew's got it. All right. If you do that every week, we're gonna laugh.
People's eyebrow right there.
People's eyebrow.
People's eyebrow.
I'll try to find something unique. It'll take some time.
I love it. I'll tell you one thing. I'm probably going to direct my people's eyebrow at is going to be NIL. So Andrew and I and Tre have been talking about that for what has it been, 4 years now?
Yep.
So for 4 years we've been talking about NIL, and the chickens are starting to come to roost for UCF. We weren't sure how that was going to work with the transfer portal. We were worried when they opened it up where people could have multiple transfers, one free transfer and then the other transfer. Now all that's happening. Last year, it kind of worked in our favor, but this year, I think we're seeing some challenges with that. We're seeing some of these transfers, like QB transfers that we had, that we were looking at. You heard us talking on the call. You heard us talking about, I don't remember who it was before that we were, we got them on campus. Things looked good. The staff felt good, but the bag just didn't come through. Right. So we needed to biggie size our NIL. We're on the lower mid tier of where the Big 12 is. So we've been losing some schools. I don't know, NC State recently, and a few other schools that seem to have a little bit bigger of a bag than us. So we're starting to see those effects. So, my first question out the gate, and I guess, Andrew, I'll let you wax poetic on this, is like, can we compete with NIL anymore where we are? We're a lot better than where we were, but we're not where we need to be. So what do you think? Can UCF compete?
Well, this was exactly what I've been talking about for 4 years that I was afraid of. You don't know who's going where, and money's flowing to everybody. And are they playing for the money? Or are they playing for the team? You got to pay them to stay around now. I mean, I'm looking at the portal here. I guess somebody joined the portal today, supposedly. It's the 18th, right? For some reason, they're saying KD McDaniel. I thought he was out a long time ago, but it's listed as today for some reason.
He came to us from Kentucky, and he played a little bit in 2022. Didn't really play this past season. He's gone again to the portal.
And this is why I don't like this, because it makes it professional football. The players are getting paid. I know I'm old, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't like that in my day, blah, blah, blah. I know all that stuff. This is ruining the game of college football. You can't get why do you even recruit anymore if you're just going to pay everybody? And then can you pay the people that you need to pay? Do you have enough of a bag to do all the things that you need to do? Like all the focus was on this quarterback from Charlotte. Where? And you're going to give that guy like a bag. And I posted this thing on the Dungeon the other day, and I'm like, right before the first, person that we actually got dropped, like the night before I posted, I'm like, where's the booms? Like where all these other schools that had already gotten people and we had nobody. So, and then all of a sudden they started, but whatever. It's just ridiculous though, because you're focused on a quarterback and you're going to pay this quarterback a bunch of money. You're going to pay one of them, but you need linebackers, you need defensive linemen, you need safeties and corners, especially defense. Linebackers, that should be the number one top priority. You're losing your top two linebackers. That
we've been talking about that preseason for 3 years.
I know
3 years we've been talking about linebackers.
I don't like it. I just don't like it. I mean, it is what it is, but this is the struggles that schools are going to have, and a young donor base that you just don't have the money that like the big schools do. I mean, I've said it for a long time, and I know I'm not trying to offend anybody on this, but when people start, our alumni starts to die when they get older and they leave the money to UCF is where that bag is going to start. And that's at that point later on, maybe 10 years down the road, maybe 20 years down the road, that's where UCF is really going to have the bag, I think, and be able to compete with some of the other ones. But the other ones are going to keep going. We're just young, and it's just, I don't know, it's a young fan base. They're, everybody is proud of that, but then again, it's going to cause some problems.
Tre Neal, a former player's perspective, we all know you hate it too, but can UCF compete in the arena where, as it stands right now? Because I do think there's going to be some change, and I'll kind of sprinkle that in later. But as we stand right now, for the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years, can UCF compete in the world of NIL?
Not to where, if we want to be a top 10 program, no. And it's just, you're not going to get in the big recruit, or you're not going to get the big recruits. And if you do, you probably won't hold on to them. And that's just the reality of the situation. It's NFL that we're dealing with pay to play. And that's just what it's going to be. I don't know if you guys followed earlier. The number one player in the class from my high school, the quarterback, flipped from Georgia to Nebraska. What do you think the reasoning was for that? Like, let's really be honest.
And you're from Georgia, for the listeners that don't remember.
And
you're
from
Georgia.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the reason for that?
But wasn't he a legacy from Nebraska that Scott Frost kind of blew off?
Yeah, but see, then the thing is, then Matt Rule gets there, he recruits him, and he still goes to Georgia anyway. So what changed from now that made you not want to go to Nebraska? Now you want to go to Nebraska. No shade to Nebraska either, but we all know what it is. It's money. And if you're going to give me I'm going to be honest, if you give me $5 million to go play versus a couple thousand, 100,000, I'm taking the $5 million because that's a crazy amount of money. And it sucks to say that because that might not necessarily be the best place for the end goal. And that's what I've always talked about. Is your goal to make money now, or is your goal to play professional? And I think that's going to be the hardest decision because.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, Tre, we've talked about it ad nauseum, right? It's the point. I think it's 0.05% of all college football players play in the NFL. And even those that do play, a lot of them are not making the 52-man roster, and they're getting league mins. And right now, because there's nothing in place to offset this, the NIL contracts are more than what the league mins are for undrafted free agents or
ridiculous. Easy.
It's ridiculous.
Close.
$1 million to compete for a quarterback right now.
Yeah,
for a good one.
That's crazy.
The thing is, it's like I don't know. I just speak from my experience. I didn't necessarily play football for money. When I realized that, I could possibly go pro, like that still didn't make me play for money. I played to, one, I enjoyed it, and two, I wanted to dominate at what I did. I was good at something. I wanted to dominate, and I wanted to be great at what I did. And it's not just the money factor, but I do understand the money. It's just, to me, like I told you, like I've said all the time, the money's great, but if your goal is to play professional and make it to the highest level, compete at the highest level, you should go wherever you think gives you that best shot. Don't chase the dollars because, the money will be here. It'll always be here. But that shot that you dreamed of as a kid, you didn't dream of as a kid, I want to make $5 million. No kids dream that. You dream, I see these guys. I see Tom Brady. I see Sean Taylor. I see all these great players playing on TV. I want to do that one day because I love to do it. So, I mean, that's the issue we're running into. And like, Josh, what you mentioned in the chat, the NFL has a salary cap. You can't just throw millions of dollars at everybody. You have to properly allocate it. Some of these big name schools, like the Texases, the ones with money since we became a country and they became, colleges, they can just throw hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, you see how much money they can rally to buy out a coach out of $80 million. They can easily get the money for the kids. So, I mean, it's sad that we're going this way. We've talked about this was the way we were going once they started really realignment because they're chasing the dollars of the TV contract. So you can't help it when the business model is chasing money for the people that are making the business run to chase the money as well. So,
all right,
what would you have done with that money if you would have got that type of money to play when you were 18 or whatever years old? What would you have done with it? I
don't know. When I'm 18, I'm not going to lie, I probably would have bought a Lamborghini. That was always my dream. Like, I would have done stupid stuff. When I'm 23, I'm a little bit more seasoned. I'm not going to say I'm super, but I wouldn't have done, the dumb things. I don't need a Lamborghini to drive 5 minutes.
That's another point. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't need a Lamborghini to drive 2 minutes to practice. Like, what's the point? I'm only going to practice in class and at UCF.
No college student needs I don't care where you go to school, no college student needs a Lamborghini because they're a football player.
Realistically, you barely need a car as it is. I mean, especially at UCF, you're going to get ticketed wherever you go. Doesn't matter how many parking you have. Doesn't matter where you park. You're getting a ticket.
That's where NIL is going to.
All right, Alan. Other than Lambos, can UCF compete in the NIL? Because really, there's multiple tiers now, right? So there's like, we were always worried about this P5 G5 divide, right? And now we kind of upgraded, but now even within the P5, it's starting to stratify through conferences and also through money. So what are your thoughts on UCF being able to compete now and into the future?
I mean, can they compete? Yes, it's just a question of, when. Right now, like you said, they're in the lower middle tier of the conference and probably the Power Five as a whole. So I think as the donor base goes up, as UCF gets more and more popular with younger generations, as well as when alumni continue to graduate at the rate that UCF always promotes, we're going to have the largest living alumni base, all that stuff, as they start to get more funds, more disposable income. Yeah, I do think we can compete in the near future. Probably not, but considering that we are lower middle tier and the fact that we have the number 27 recruiting class and the fact that the portal losses have been very minimal this year, as far as being able to retain our own guys, like we talked about last week. I think they've been able to maximize the amount of limited funds that they do have. But when you talk about, can they compete for top level 5-star talent and top level transfers that like a Bo Nix or, some of these guys that have transferred in recent years, no, they can't compete with, like Matt Rule said, you need $1.5 million, $2 million for one player when that's arguably, their entire budget. So they're not going to be able to compete for that level of, talent at the stars of college football. But UCF has always done more with less. They recruit guys that are under recruited, turn them into stars, and hopefully we're able to retain those guys, and then obviously get a few blue chip recruits like we've been doing in this 2024 class that's about to sign on Wednesday. So I think we're competitive, but we're not going to compete with the Bamas and Texas A&Ms of the world, but we weren't expecting that. But I do think in the future, there's a reasonable expectation that they will acquire more funds and be able to recruit and keep up with more the upper echelon, maybe not the top 10, top 15, but be more in that upper middle tier as opposed to the lower middle tier.
All right.
I guess like the only problem is like kind of what we talked about. When you recruit those guys who aren't blue chippers and develop them, back then when I played, that's what recruiting was. Anybody can go get the 5 stars. Can you see really talent of guys who maybe one coach all year comes through and you evaluate? Now you can do that and then you develop them and they're just going to get poached.
They're gone.
Yeah, they're going to get poached. Yeah. And that's the worst part.
Because they're going to get paid. They're going to get the bag after you develop them.
And so like that's going to be the struggle too, because it's going to be, hey, either pay me this money or I'm going to go to Alabama, or pay me this money, I'm going to go to Mississippi State, just because they just have more money. It might not even be the best in that kid's best interest. And I know we talked about, Javon Baker saying, pay me the money. And I'm like, where else do you want to go if you're trying to play on Sundays? Because that's what you've been telling us for 2 to 3 years. I'm trying to play on Sundays. So I guess that's going to be the struggle.
Well, the thing of it is, it's reverse diamond mining, right? So now we're at a P5 level, diamond mining out of the G5, right? So we're pulling linebackers, we're pulling everything else out of the G5 and try to find the guys that we can afford. But it goes back to kind of like what Alan referenced, which is our focus, and I think our strategy is the guys that we have that are good. So think about the Walkers of the world. Think about, Javon Baker. Think about Kobe Hudson. Those guys, before we go out and understand what our budget is to go shopping, we make sure that we build a fence around the guys that are important to the makeup of the team with the NIL initiative money, right? So you heard Gus talk about it at the end of the season. The first week was have those conversations and lock those guys down. And he even said NIL conversations. Once that's done and they have a good feeling of who's going to stick around and who's not, then they have a better idea of what their roster management, because that's what it is. It's roster management dollars that's left over, their cap space that's left over for them to go be able to acquire talent to fill needs. So, it's almost like we talked about it becoming a farm system. It's almost like it is becoming a farm system for both us in the G5 and some of the larger P5s taking away from us. So the question is, how long is that sustainable? And, when can we, or how can we climb out of that? So Josh, let me bring you up. And what's your take on that? Can we compete, or is this just a new reality?
I think it's one step forward, 2 steps back, because we're kind of where we were in the past in the American and then back in the Conference USA. Can't we compete? Sure. But as Tre was saying, top 10, it's probably not. And so we're going to probably have these same things with the Big 12 title. We'll be able to do reasonably well, but will we get over the top? And unless we get a mix of getting lucky in the portal with a QB or building up a QB, like Timmy McClain, and seeing him grow over time and hopefully moving forward and not, speaking of 2 steps back, I think that's the way we're going to win in the long run, which is the way we've won in the past. It's just, we don't have imagine T-Bone Pickens alive with the billions being just thrown around. It'd be amazing to see some of that. And you're seeing that in other areas too. So can we compete? Yes, but basically at the same levels we were competing at for the last decade. I don't think us getting to the Big 12 and moving up, we all thought, okay, we now can compete against those within reason in this Power 4 or 5, whatever you want to call it, because we have the title. You don't have to go to UF or Miami or FSU to play the same level of football.
Well, it's definitely Power 4. I mean, some of the news this week, a couple of things this week, the Pac, quote unquote, 12, which is now the Pac 2, the Tupac conference. They actually took and they're shutting down their network officially. So they're laying off everybody by the end of next year. And Oregon State and Washington State won a huge victory against the departing members by saying, hey, they solely get to make decisions, even if it financially impacts negatively the rest of the Pac-12 that's leaving. So, I think it is P4. What's going to be interesting is what's the next step or iteration or evolution of that, right? Is because
P2
honestly, the only way that it works, we've got a quasi NFL model now, and I talked about this in 2016. The only way that college football works at that level is to go to an NFL model, collectively bargain, have a quote unquote czar of the NCAA, split off, the Power 5, and then, regionalize it all under one banner. And that way you could also, and I think for the schools, you bring the NIL back into the schools that way. You have collective bargaining that way, and everybody's playing with a quote unquote even playing field. Now, who's going to be against that?
I got something when you have
the SEC will be against that.
One second and I'll take a breath and then you can jump in. But I think the big thing there is who's going to be against that. That's going to be the power brokers of college football, right? Yeah. So the larger brands that have been accumulating. However, they still need the smaller brands to have the content that they need to get their dollars up, which is what you've seen with the power conferences for years. So Andrew, you wanted to mention something?
Can you guys send me the PDF of the rules of NIL? Does anybody have it?
We all know what
there isn't any.
There's
no rules. There's no contracts and there's no rules.
There are some state rules.
Here's the rule: spend
That's
as
the
much
problem.
money as you have.
It's just the wild wild west, and I agree.
Yeah,
it's Biggie size the bag. That's the rule.
Yeah,
and I don't know if did you guys see Chip Kelly's press conference the other day?
I did.
Where he was talking about what really he thinks going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen. I think football is going to branch off because I think this is the trial run, in my opinion. I think they're going to go because Stanford playing all these SEC games, that's cool for football, but flying 4 to 6 hours to go play a baseball midweek tournament, fly all the way back, that's not going to work for a lot of people. Doing that for basketball.
Hey, UCF's been doing that for years, bro. You guys
Of
guys
course.
had those commercial miles going.
Listen, of course. I'm just saying that's going to be a problem for the athlete. And I think that not just football, because we all know football kind of is the engine to all of this. But those kind of things are going to cause issues. And I think they're just going to be like, you know what? We're just going to take all of football sports. So softball, baseball, soccer, everybody else, you can kind of do what you want. But we're going to make this thing and just go full on. I think that's what they're going to do. Something along those lines. Just go full on almost AAA football and subdivision amateurism football. That's what I think they're going to do. and just take, like you said, all those big name schools. Hey, spend as much money as you want, whatever you want to do, TV contract, and they're going to start trying to get salary cap involved so that you can't have just dominant teams because all they care about is the product. Yeah, the brand
needs to be a salary cap. That's a big deal.
It's going to be a certain kind of salary cap.
And contracts. There needs to be contracts. Like these people that, like, I know everybody talks about coaches being able to leave at any time, but there's decisions that are built, or there's escalators that are built into their contracts to keep them for a certain period of time.
All of them have a contract too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but what I mean by that is, like, their buyouts are so expensive that they're there at the school for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, no school would pay that buyout, some of those buyouts.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's got to be something to stop the movement within the programs, because you can't develop people within a system. There's no continuity within what you have. You have to adjust to your players every year. And, when you're talking about, it's like, I can't remember his last name, Mike, guy who died, who was at Texas Tech.
Oh, Gundy. Not Gundy.
Leach. It's like Mike Leach. His whole system was predicated on doing the same thing over and over again and doing it really, really well. And he was very successful with that. You can't do that if you're changing systems every year. You just can't. So when it comes to that, the success of the football team itself, then the success of the system itself, and the ability to coach these players to their, because body types are different for systems. I mean, look at Frost's offensive linemen. They were a completely different body type than, and their intention was to get to the second level. That was their whole move the line of scrimmage to the second level.
Guys who can move in space.
That's different than someone who's doing a traditional, offense, like an SEC style offense. It's also different than everything else. So those body types, those skills, those techniques, if they're constantly changing, they're not going to develop. And it's not good for the student athlete either, because George O'Leary, by the way, who we will see on the sidelines this weekend, we'll talk about that a little bit later. One of the things that he did really, really well, and why he put so many NFL players, and you've mentioned this too, Tre, why he put so many NFL players out there, was because technique was like everything for him. He took players and developed them with technique, right? And so when they got to the NFL, they knew what the practice habits were, and they had the technique down, which a lot of these other receivers, Heupel's offense, none of those receivers knew technique. Gabe Davis had to go learn route trees, right? And he did it. He put in the extra work to do all that stuff to be ready for the NFL. But those receivers, they had literally 4 routes, and they could choose whichever route they wanted to go on. You're not developing the skills that you need for the NFL. The quality of the football suffers. And if you're moving around constantly, you're never going to get a good fundamental understanding of what you're doing. It's just bad all the way around, and it needs to be nipped in the bud. I do think that, consolidation and some sort of football czar or NCAA, when we were on the G6 side of the pond, we were all about, we talked about it on the show. They shouldn't separate. Everybody should have the same opportunity, all that stuff. It's not just P5 versus G5 anymore, right? It's P5 versus G5. It's also P5 versus within P5. And right now, we're at a stage where the upper level P5s get to do whatever they want. The lower level P5s can't compete. There has to be something to balance that out, because there's not enough quality football to put on TV for it to work as college football today. So it has to be reined in. And I do think it will be separated. And I do think that that's coming sooner rather than later. It's why Brett Yomark has been talking about basketball and building basketball brands and having a separate basketball contract for a long time, and how that part of the contract was undervalued. And guess who benefits from the basketball contract right now? The NCAA. If they're not involved anymore, basketball is going with this movement as well. And the Big 12, that's one advantage they have. And that's why the Gonzagas of the world and the UConns of the world are getting a call. It's not because, for UConn, it's definitely not football, right? Nobody cares about the civil conflict anymore. You know what I mean? It's all about the basketball brands, and you're seeing those steps being put into place right now.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about. I'm not a huge basketball guy, college ball. I'll admit that. I follow a little bit, but I can tell you one time of the year that I do follow. That's March Madness, and that kind of thing is when you can get everybody watching TV to just watch March Madness. That is what drives money, which drives the TV contract. So I think it's smart if they're trying to get ahead of it and try to get these separate basketball contracts. Because again, when football does branch off, which I think it is, everybody else is going to be left to scramble. All the TV contracts can be like, look, we mostly care about football. We need to renegotiate. You need to get ahead of it now. Try to get whatever you can get now.
Well, I can tell you this. That's one way that the Big 12 can differentiate itself. Think about the brands coming in. Arizona State. Think about, Arizona. Think about all the basketball brands that they're bringing in right now. It's a way and a safeguard to say, hey, if you're going to take basketball along with this contract, you better take the Big 12 because we got a ton of good basketball schools. Yep. So take us with you. And it's the Power Three. I see the ACC breaking apart in the near future. Well, not near future. Whenever the buyouts are small enough that FSU can leave, that's really the death knell. When FSU and Clemson leave, that's the death knell of the ACC. We all see it coming. The ACC sees it coming. Once that happens, and that's probably 2 contract cycles away from now, that's when you see the break. Now they'll start doing the work for that now. And laying the foundation for it now.
Well, I'm sure that FSU already has started that.
Oh, FSU's tried. I mean, they were talking about having like the guys who sponsor Live coming. The FSU fans were talking about the guys who sponsor Live coming out and buying out their contract for their grant of rights, which is dumb because they still won't own their own football games, which is what is valuable. Like they can't show it on the SEC network or anything else. But at the end of the day, what it boils down to is that work is happening now. And if you're blind to it, it's I'm sorry. It's there. It's happening. And I'm hoping and I think that because UCF is in the media market that it is, and again, we're going back to media markets. If we were in Podunk, Idaho, right, and no offense to anybody who's watching this from Idaho, which I'm sure is a grand total of 0 viewers, but if you happen to be from Idaho, nobody's bringing the Idaho Vandals with us to a P5. UCF sits in the middle of a metropolitan of 2.7 million right now, which is bigger than the state of Oklahoma. So UCF will be going
not in cows.
Thing is
not in cows.
Well,
we don't need to bring the cows.
Florida, but if you're talking across Florida, we need more cows.
More cows in Oklahoma than there is people.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about our allies, friends.
No, there's more cows. Nebraska's the same way. There's more cows than people. Look it up.
Well, that's why they eat all that steak. They have to keep the population down.
There's Nebraska has some good steak, man.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
It's so much better, isn't it, than Florida? Like Midwest steak, it's totally different.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well,
nobody needs Wagyu there.
That's what Tre left.
As I remember, Nobra owes us steak for this year for score predictions.
I think Tre didn't Tre owe us steak in the last year at Nightline too. Whatever happened to that?
He did. Well, he said he was going to buy it and you were going to cook it because you were a master chef.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, what happened to that? We forgot about that. That's okay.
You guys let me know, man.
Nobra's trying to get out of it. See, here's the great thing about that, Nobra. He's in the comments saying, "No, it's Josh. I have the clip to prove it." Oh boy, Josh, you're in trouble.
It's
all right.
No, what the problem is we had the different disagreement about how we were scoring.
Ask Andrew.
Well,
okay.
There was a little disagreement. There was a tiebreaker or something, I think, wasn't there?
Either way, I'm not paying for it either way. So I don't care. Whoever's cooking it, it's steak and Cheetos. Let's go. All right. So, a couple things that we've seen happen is complete roster turnover for some of these teams. You look at Arizona, you look at Colorado. I can't remember if it's Arizona or Arizona State. I think it's Arizona State, where they had a coaching change and they've completely gone to the transfer portal to buy their entire roster. So that shakes up the entire market for everybody else. And that also introduces something that's interesting too, because, hey, if you do a crappy job of bringing people in recruiting with the previous coach, you don't have to wait around and rebuild your recruiting. You can just go buy a roster, right? And that's bad for the guys that are there. And it's also bad for everybody else who's trying to compete in the market because there's less people there. Now, for UCF, let's talk about where we are as of right now with the transfer portal. So we had 2 more people enter the transfer portal. We talked about Dallas Corbett, and it seems like BC is loading up on our players. We had another one go to BC, which is interesting. McDonald went to BC, so now they've got 3 of our players on there. Although some sad news for Ryan O'Keefe, who played for us and went to BC, who was injured and is unfortunately was last year. He was injured, not this past season, but the season before. Had a neck injury, and it turns out he's got some medical conditions outside of that in conjunction with that will preclude him from being able to continue his NFL dream. So he is officially retiring from football. So glad. Yeah, it really sucks. You know, everybody's like, oh, you know, someone leaves us and blah, blah, blah. Ryan O'Keefe gave us a lot of great memories. You know, he was a good guy. He had a crazy story. If you guys remember, I believe he was adopted and first kid in Texas that was adopted under the leave your child by a fire station rule without, you know, anything. So there's a lot to go for him. He was always great when he was here. We had the great Deuces memory for Otis Anderson, you know, at the Florida game. You know, just so many good things and a good person, and, you know, wish him well for that. But going back to us, Corey Thornton transferred to the Ville. So it's interesting because Louisville, who's got crappy basketball now, you know, they have been loading up on players. They've kind of upped their game as far as that is concerned. So that Papa John's money is starting to pay off for them. So that makes you wonder if Memphis could ever get out of their own way and actually, you know, bring in the FedEx money that they've been screaming about for the past 20 years. Can teams like that compete? Or SMU, who bought their way into the ACC? What's that going to look like when they start hitting the market? I mean, is it going to be the Pony Express all over again? Have 8,000 fans in the stands, but you've got a great team because you've got some donors that want to spend the money to bring in great players. So it has material, you know, it has material change. Players like McCall, who would have been a great fit in our system, you know, he ends up at NC State. NC State doesn't have a system built around him. They don't have a system that you know, they're more a traditional type of system. They don't feature someone who can run. You know what I mean? So again, it goes back to what's right for them. And for McCall and guys like that, you know, 1 year left to play, it's all about the bag because they're probably not going to make it. They're fringe on the NFL. They might get an undrafted free agent. So why not cash out? And this year for us, we just had a player reclassify who's going to be huge, EJ Coulson, from 2025 to 2024. So we really only needed a 1 year holdover for us to make sure that we could stay competitive. What does that say about Timmy McClain and the coaches and their confidence in his ability to do what he needs to do to keep us competitive for the year? So let me ask that question. What do you guys think about that?
I'm all about Timmy. I mean, I really am. He did some amazing things, even though he did some horrible things as well. But if you look at his stats, if you really break down the time that he played really good. I was looking at it earlier. I don't know if I still have it on here or not, but his efficiency rating, if you look at the stats, you know how I like to go through these cumulative stats every year. You look at his efficiency compared to Plumlee, 9 games for Plumlee, 6 games for McClain. Whatever. McLean's 176.9 efficiency to Plumlee's 152.4. 9 touchdowns for McLean, 2 interceptions. Maybe he didn't throw it as much, whatever, but he's a serviceable quarterback. It's just taken him a little while to like learn the system, I think. Some people need time to develop, and I think that he's one of those guys. But I think it's doable.
No, I'm with you, Andrew. I think the thing with Timmy was always going to be let him kind of learn. When he was thrusting into action, I think to be a backup quarterback come into action, he played well. It's just the issue was the mistakes just came at bad times. And that's where people kind of forget about it. Because, I mean, now that we've been 3-4 weeks off of it and just kind of look back at it, he didn't play that bad. He played pretty serviceable. Got the guy.
And some of the stuff that he did was amazing too. That one where he ran into the end zone and made a play after that. Nobody does that.
Exactly.
There was a reason why that was on top 10 of Sports Center because nobody does that. He has the ability to do stuff like that. He has the ability to make plays. He may not have the ability to think extremely fast, and maybe that's what he needs to learn a little bit. But you're going to see him improve even more this next year and more the next year if he sticks around.
And the thing about thinking fast and playing fast, it comes with time, and that's
the only thing.
It's different for everybody. I always prided myself on being one of the smartest guys on the field, so I could play fast. If you thought I could play fast when I was 18 versus when I've been in college for 3 years, felt the game, seen how fast guys actually move, it's very different. One, getting thrown in the fire for the first time.
I guarantee you, Timmy McLean's experience this year was extremely valuable.
Exactly.
Extremely valuable.
It might not have been beneficial for this season, but going forward, if
for him it was.
It's going to help. Yeah, like I think that's the thing. Like it's not going to be surprising for him next year. It's not going to be, hey, you got to play. Like, get ready. No, you're going to have another year under the belt in the system.
So everybody knows, if you don't know, everybody on Nightline knew that I'm from Kansas. If you look at a guy like Jason Bean that played from Kansas, he developed over the years and stuck there and could have gone other places and stayed there. And look what happened to him this year when he was thrown in there. I mean, he played lights out most of the time. There were still some little mistakes, but man, did he ever make a name for himself beating Oklahoma and everything else? I mean, the last game of the season, he had one of the best games by a KU quarterback in years, and it was Jason Bean, same thing. It's the same. It's very similar.
The biggest thing with McLean is, does he have the ability to make the reads? And that's where he was missing this year. And Josh, I didn't mean to cut you off, so I'm going to put you on stage. I'm sorry.
It's okay. There's lots of moving parts here. My question is, and that might be to the group, does Timmy McLean need someone else who's been a starting quarterback? We have a pretty big quarterback room, and I'm sure everyone there is going to push him too. But does he need a starter or a pretty developed quarterback to push him to be QB1?
I don't know. I think he wants QB1. The big question mark is Dylan Risk. All we know from Dylan Risk right now is the coaches said he did great in practice, but we haven't seen anything out of him. His high school stats, he was at a big name school, and that got us into pipeline there at that big name school, but his stats weren't world beaters. Now, that being said, he was also playing at a very, very, very high level as far as the classification of the high school football in the state of Florida. So, I don't expect everyone to be world beaters as long as you're a winner. I don't know. I think McLean is past the point where he needs to be pushed. The question is can the coaches spend the time and give him, coach him out of some of the mental mistakes that he made and be able to allow him to read the defenses beforehand a little bit better. I mean, he was better than he was the year prior because he was a run first quarterback the year before that, and at the Cows when he played for the Cows, he was run first. He'd tuck and run, and then he'd throw. That wasn't Timmy this year. He showed mobility. He could get out of the pocket, but sometimes he took too long to get rid of the ball, and then he ended up running back 30 yards and throwing a pass for like 10.
And that's what you see with the inexperienced quarterbacks is they'll, especially when they're a run-first mentality kind of guy, they'll run around back there and sometimes they can make things happen, but most of the time they can't. And that's kind of what you've got to get out of him. I think Henshaw is a good guy to do that, though. I think he made marked improvements with Plumlee this year.
Oh, yeah,
100%.
I mean, it was a big difference seeing him. And I think a lot of that was Darren Henshaw going in there and, showing him the mechanics to throw the ball that are a little bit different than he was doing before. He still threw quite a few interceptions this year, but not all of them were his fault. I understand. But he didn't run first a lot of times. And a lot of that had to do with his knee being hurt. But even before the knee was hurt or the ankle or whatever it was, he showed improvement with that. And I think a lot of that was Henshaw. Is what I was
he climbed the ladder. That was the big thing with him is when he wasn't running, he climbed the ladder a lot better. Yep. McLean didn't climb the ladder very good. He tried to run out and go sideline to sideline. And I think that's the big difference. Now, the question is can we even find someone now with the current crop of QBs that are out there that's better than McLean? The only one that I could potentially see is KJ Jefferson, who is now on the market, and he was a dual threat from Arkansas that's now on the market. What do you guys think about KJ Jefferson?
You're saying too late, but I actually think a lot of people are going to start getting into the portal after the bowl game, especially if they do well. I don't think everyone is already all on their way out. I think there might be some more coming in slowly through the end of the year because even JRP was kind of late, if I remember correctly.
January.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there were reasons for that because we had
he was a wide receiver.
Well, there was one part of that. The others we whiffed on 2 Heisman Trophy finalists, but we probably also didn't have the bag there either. So
Bo Nix and Michael Penix, if anybody is wondering.
Correct.
Imagine if we would have had Bo Nix this year. How different things probably could have been.
I would have liked to have Michael Penix with the receivers that we have. Honestly, I would have loved to have him.
Bo Nix was the natural fit. But
JRP with a full season would have also been nice too, or any quarterback with a full season since like Bortles or McKenzie first year, right? Anyone. I think that's really, and we've talked about this here, and I'm sure, Andrew, you've talked about it in the past too.
So
having a quarterback actually play the entire year would be really, really nice for UCF. Period. End of statement.
I also think that the thing about quarterback that's different from other positions as far as bringing in an experienced guy, there's only one quarterback that can play. When you bring in an experienced defensive lineman or experienced wide receiver or running back or any other position, there's multiple positions, so you can the transition, you can maybe play them early, let the young guys learn, and then get the young guys, cut down on the reps. Quarterback, it's either you're starting or you're a backup. Like, there's no smoothing it over, really. So I think it's going to be touchy because, again, Timmy played, 4 or 5 games this year? He's got a good little bit to play. Yeah, he's got a good little bit under his belt. He's played, with the Cows before, but, he's got another year in the system. And then, again, going into spring, working with the receivers again, that is huge. The same things we were saying for JRP as far as working with getting another year under his belt with the receivers in the offseason, it's going to be the same thing with Timmy. And I think bringing in, while, yes, it'd be awesome if you can get a McCall or a KJ Jefferson, you still have to kind of manage the room. And you don't want that. That's going to be the hardest part about the quarterback room in general.
All right.
If it was me, I would go with Timmy and spend the money someplace else.
All right. So you're on the McLean train.
Absolutely.
Andrew.
Yep.
All right.
Spend the money on some linebackers. We need them bad.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Yeah.
Alan, you've been a little quiet, so I wanted to bring you to the stage and allow you to say a few things here.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Timmy thing is, for me, it reminds me a little bit of the Mikey Keene situation. It really feels like the coaching staff has made up their mind and Timmy's not the guy. Like, that's just what it feels like, because they've already pursued 3 quarterbacks. We're still pursuing another. And I know, of course, they're going to, we want depth there and they want to bring a transfer, but they're trying to bring in a transfer for the starting position.
Well, let me ask you this, and then I'll just put this out there for you. Is it lack of confidence in McLean, or is it lack of confidence in what's behind him? You've got a 17-year-old who just reclassified that's coming in, and you've got Dylan Rist that nobody knows anything about. So, we saw this season how important it is to be competitive at a Power 5 level. You have to have a reasonably good backup. And then, to use your example, Andrew, with Bean coming in and taking over for a big part of the season, they did well. And then when they got to their third string guy, the wheels kind of fell off, right? So you have to have, at a Power 5 level, you have to have someone who can run the offense. So to me, is it, okay, if we're looking at who was the guy from one of the MAC teams that we were looking at for about a hot second that ended up going to Baylor, is it about McLean, or is it about having a backup to last the season, considering how many quarterbacks in the Big 12 have lasted the entire season?
I think it's both. But I do think it still speaks a little bit to the lack of confidence in McLean. Yes, of course, you're going to need the depth. You're going to need a backup. You have a lot of uncertainty with a lot of youth behind Timmy and all that. But I still think there is that lack of confidence there. And my thing is, unless you can go out and get a quarterback that is undeniably better than McLean, like Grayson McCall would have been, or someone like that, I kind of agree with, what was said here, is that why not roll with Timmy? I mean, he showed, I think, enough over 4 games to give him the chance. He knows his system. This will be year 3 at UCF. He performed pretty well. It wasn't his fault that, UCF blew a 4-touchdown lead to Baylor. Yes, he had his mistakes, but I think a lot of those mistakes were correctable mistakes. They weren't purely mechanics or not being able to throw or something like that. A lot of it seemed to be mental mistakes or holding onto the ball too long, things that we discussed on this podcast. Yeah, it's experience. So for me, I'd give him a guy that's been in the system for 2 years. He's a dual threat, showed some skill. Unless you can go out, we've already talked about, UCF doesn't have a budget for a $1 to $2 million quarterback that's going to be undeniably better than Timmy. So what are we even talking about here? Unless you can go find that guy, I'm not saying don't try. If you can go get a guy and he signs with us, sure, let's do it. But if you can't, let's give Timmy the reins. I mean, he's a local kid. He's got talent. Let's see what he can do. I mean, I just don't see UCF going out and nabbing a quarterback that is undeniably better than
a game changer. Timmy is good. I'm not going to say he's bad. He's not great. He's not a game changer yet. But if you I don't even think Grayson McCall is a game changer. And I've watched those games. He's good, and he might be better than Timmy. But is he a game changing quarterback? That's what you want to get. You want to get that guy that anything can happen. We can rely on him. That's what at least our greatest teams, when you have a Mackenzie Milton that can make a play, a Blake Bortles, the cast is great too, but you need those game changers. And if you can't go, we're not going to chalk if the market is $1 to $2 million for those guys, we're not going to pay that. So
here's where I think we're at. I think we've got the 3-headed monster of Javon Baker, Kobe Hudson, and RJ Harvey. And I think what we're saying is, in order to keep those guys and the bags that they're being offered, we need to have someone that we can go back and say that we can win, right? So I think that's why they go after the big guys, because, again, for them, it's their last year before they go to the NFL, right? I mean, RJ.
I don't want a 1-year quarterback either.
Well, we kind of have to, because we've got our quarterback path is already planned for 2024 and beyond. We've got EJ Colson. We've got Riley Trujillo. We've got, and I can't remember the 2025 quarterback. That's a big name quarterback that has been trending UCF's way for a really long time. Now, who knows by 2025? But clearly the plan is Riley, is EJ, and a third quarterback. None of the players that are on the squad right now are our solutions for 24, 25. So that's your rebuilding years, right? When you're starting to build those quarterbacks up. They're not going to play this year. We're not fielding a 17-year-old as good as he is, state champion, borderline 4-star quarterback as a 17-year-old, who was a junior effectively. We're not going to field him at a Power 5 level. It's not going to happen this year. So I feel like the youth movement is on. They have some pieces where they can win next year in that core nucleus that's coming back. And I think they're trying to find somebody that they can say to them, hey, don't take the NIL bag somewhere else. Stick around so we can have a good season, so we don't have to completely give up on 2024.
There's no guarantee that guy is out there that is going to be better than Timmy, appreciably better than Timmy.
Well, I understand that, but you asked
no
the
guarantee that they're going to come here and play worth a crap either.
No, I didn't say why even look. I just said that if we can go get someone like that, then let's do it. I just don't think that there's going to be a guy that we can afford that is that much better than Timmy. I think the affordable guys are going to be on Timmy's level, is what I think.
Well, and that's fine because you still need a good backup if that's your plan.
They can go get a backup.
That's where I think that's what I think.
Backups are a lot cheaper.
So. All right, so we beat that one to death. Let's talk about who we've landed in the last couple weeks. We did pull in a linebacker, Nakai Hill-Green, who also came from Charlotte. He's a big body. He was I believe he was the conference leader and one of the conference standouts for them as far as tackling was concerned. A number one tackler in the conference. He's 220 pounds. He's a little over 6'2", so big body type of guy. He's got a lot of experience.
Third stop too.
Yeah, got a lot of experience.
Third school.
Yeah, he also played at Michigan. So obviously he was a big name recruit. He did really, really well in his previous conference, and now we're trying to bring him in. And then also landed safety Byron Threats from Cincinnati. We had half of the defense of Cincinnati that was visiting. We had Pace here, and the thing about Byron Threats that's interesting is he had a little bit of a snafu in the game against UCF this year, in the sense that he got thrown out for throwing a punch. So word is from some Cincinnati guys that he's a little volatile in the locker room, and with that kind of behavior, I believe that. But he's also a pretty good player. So
I think Coach Gibbs will whip that into shape pretty quick, to be honest with you. I know Coach Gibbs very, very well, and he will not stand for stupid stuff like that on the field.
Well, he was your coach, so you know him very well.
Very well. And I know that he won't stand for it. So, and this is the thing, like, you're giving these guys a bag. So can you coach these guys still? Because they're making so much money?
If your locker room is strong, you can coach anybody.
Yeah.
I think that's like, we put a lot of emphasis into the coaching kind of like, but every great team that I played on, we kind of manage ourselves in the locker room for good and for bad. If guys are getting away with stuff, if you can't correct them, then, the coach, what can really the coach, besides bench a player, what can the coaches really do to correct a guy? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think if the locker room's strong, absolutely you can fix it. Because
do you think guys have with the guys that get the big bag, do you think that there's animosity between players now? That's something that I worry about. Like, why are you paying him that much and you're paying me freaking peanuts? And
I guess I think it just has to be with the locker room. If that guy performs and he's playing well, then I don't think there's any issues. But if there's a guy you're kind of silent on, like, why is he playing? He's not better than this guy or this guy. Then probably I think that's in every locker room. But
right.
Again,
I just feel like NIL would probably bring that out a little bit more. Yeah, and that's something that I've worried about from the beginning. Because geez, I didn't play very much because I wasn't as good as the other guys, and I understood that, and I tried to get better, and it made me like work harder. Yeah. But like, if the guy ahead of me was making a ton of money and I wasn't, I'd be a little jealous at that point.
So I think that's where you have to. I'm speaking from my experience. When I was a freshman, I had a big group of seniors that worked hard at everything. And they're like, listen, if you're not good enough to play, you're not going to play. And to me, it's if they're bringing in a guy, for example, to come play cornerback, the cornerback should look at themselves in the mirror and be like, we're not good enough right now. They think they have to bring somebody in. So I need to show that I'm better than him. It shouldn't be why are they bringing him in, blah, blah, blah. No, look at yourself in the mirror, get better, and that's how you become a better player. You know,
is this the Tre Yells At Cloud segment early?
It's just I just think that, like, I think naturally there's going to be an animosity to it, just because, again, why couldn't they pay me that much? That's going to come across their mind. But they should, again, you have to earn everything. You know, if you haven't shown the coaches enough for them to believe in you, to not go get a corner or a quarterback. We didn't go get any quarterbacks this past offseason. That means they believed in JRP. You know, we had guys in-house. We didn't go get a quarterback. If they're going to get guys, then they don't believe in the guy, in my opinion. That means they don't fully believe in the guys in-house. They might have some confidence, but they might not fully believe, hey, he's going to take the next step and be great for us. Like that's what it says to me, at least.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some things that are going well and some high school recruits. UCF landed 2024 high school recruit, big time, number 27. Wow, I just completely lost my mind. Marcus Downs, defensive lineman. He's a borderline 4-star recruit out of South Carolina, number 1 recruit in South Carolina, and he's coming to UCF. So that was a pretty big deal for us. And, I'm excited to see him, because anybody that we can put on, that we can bring to Central Florida that has, is a number 1 player in the South, I want to bring him here, especially if he's a D lineman, so we can load up on those D linemen and continue those rotations for the big guys like Lee Hunter and, especially on defensive ends. So, super excited about that. And then, for early signing day, I think Day Farmer is someone who may not end up signing with us. But as of right now, with his commitment, Marcus Downs' commitment, we are the number 27 ranked high school class. Despite everything we just said, we are the number 27 ranked high school class. So just outside the top 25.
Rivals has it at 26.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? I mean, I'm going to ask you this, Andrew, specifically, because we've talked about recruiting for a very long time, where UCF was, where it's been, typically in the 60s, sometime in the 70s when they were in the American, and now we're at number 27 in the country. What does that mean for UCF?
Oh, I mean, the NIL throws the whole thing off. Obviously, we've got a bunch of 4-stars in there that we weren't able to get before. So that's, a marked improvement. Still no 5-star. But if you look at the Big 12, there's only 1 or 2 teams that really have 5 stars anyway.
Well, we're number 2, I think, in blue chips in the Big 12, right?
I think it's just because of that. Yeah, I mean, they're all 4-stars. But I don't know. I think this whole thing goes back to it. Even if you get these guys, how long are they going to be here? How long is Lee Hunter going to be here? You really think if Lee Hunter has a huge season next year and is All-American again, that he's still going to be here? We're going to be able to.
No, he's going to the NFL. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
even if you weren't, I don't think he'd stay either. Like I think, the market for those kind of players almost force your hand. Like if somebody's going to pay you, hey, Lee Hunter, I know you blah, 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 blah. Come play here for $4 million at USC. You can't.
I guess he'll be a sophomore, so he can do that next year.
Yeah, like he's gonna.
Well, I mean, the big one for me is less about Lee Hunter and more about John Walker, and I think that's another reason we want to win, right? Freshman
John Walker. I think I'm talking about John Walker. You said Lee Hunter earlier, so I was thinking that.
Yeah,
John Walker's the guy I'm talking about.
Yeah, so John Walker, freshman All-American this year. If we have another 6-6 season, does he stick around his junior year here instead of going to someone like, I don't know, Texas, or definitely not the Gators, because we know they're not going to win, but like someone who's at that level and can win to maximize his draft potential, because he's going to his junior year, after his junior year, he's going to the draft. That's simply just going to happen.
If he stays healthy, he should.
So, that's more what I'm concerned about than anything else. And that's less, I think that's what the coaches are concerned about keeping it competitive.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's exciting to have the 26 team, I guess. I mean, I don't bank on any of this stuff, any of these names. I'm looking at it right now here, all the names, but you won't know really who's even going to be here until a couple days from now. And we'll see who actually comes and how the chips fall and what rank we are after National Signing Day instead of before, personally. I like to watch this stuff, a little bit, but it's hard to get excited about it just because you never know until it's done. So,
yeah.
Sorry, I probably dropped the ball on this one, but
Totally.
it's just kind of the way I feel now because of the whole transfer portal and NIL.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like we used to get really excited about signing day. And now it's like, what is signing their national letter of intent even mean anymore? They could literally transfer like 2 months later. I know there's like windows, but like it doesn't.
Well, Dylan Gabriel transfers the same day.
Yeah, they could decide to literally not if they play in under 4 games, they could decide to sit out the rest of the season, transfer. Like this, the signing the national letter of intent literally means nothing anymore. And it's like, I agree with everything you said. Like it's getting ruined by all this stuff, and it's
see
cool
that
that
thing
we've
on
got
the
all these
bottom of
blue
the
chips,
screen.
and it shows the improvement we've made in our recruiting and how Gus is doing there in that department. And it's great, and hopefully we keep some of these guys. But because there's no guarantee anymore, it's like, okay, well, all 5, 6, 7 4-star guys we got could be gone within 8 months from now. So it's like, but it is at least cool to see that this is our highest ever rated recruiting class in school history. So I think, that shows we made a step in the right direction, and you'd still rather have a top 25, top 26 class than not have one, but it's definitely less exciting than it would have been, 5 years ago.
Yeah. I just wonder what it actually means, like you were saying, 8 months from now or less, half of these guys couldn't be here anymore or whatever. So
let me put it to you this way. If we had an NIL bag equivalent to some of these other people that we're losing to, this would be a top 10, top 15 class. And the reason we have a top 26, top 27 for everybody who talks about
say it again, Roger, if we had what?
If we had
the money.
If we had the money, this would be a top 10, top 15 class. There's a lot of players, EPL, for example, who just went to Oklahoma. The only reason he's not a Knight is because of the bag that Oklahoma dropped, right? So there's so many players that would be here if that wasn't the case. And I think that speaks
and we
favorably.
Still got a lot of them.
Well, that's my point. I think that speaks favorably to the coaches that we have on staff, and not just Gus, but the rest of the coaches. Their recruiting ability. I think they're making up for some of that. For those that are marginal or like we're close or whatever, we're getting those players. So everybody who's down on recruiting because we missed on a remember, this is still a huge class for us. And our first year with the full big, having played in the Big 12, we're still better. There's 70 P5 teams now. There were 64. UCF, 1963 founding UCF football program, from what was it? 1970, whatever, 78, something like that.
Yeah.
We are now in the same breath. If you look at all these commitment graphics, it's Texas, it's UCF, it's Ohio State, it's UCF. That's who we're competing against. And we're pulling in top 26, top 27 classes without the benefit of having a bag. So more power to the coaching staff for managing that, number one. And number two, recruiting to the point. And number three, I think it shows that what UCF could have done with the P5 tag. And imagine what it would have been before NIL was legalized. So
this would have been much more important.
Yeah, but I think it bodes well for the future because I do think that split will happen. I do think there'll be a salary cap. I do think that players will be paid by the schools directly. And when that happens, I feel like UCF is going to be well positioned in the future. So, all right, we talked a lot about that. Let's talk about our hometown bowl game, the Gasparilla Bowl, O'Leary Bowl, the Brent Key 4 a.m. Bowl. We're prepping to Swat the Swarm this week. The game will be on the 22nd. It seems to be like if we're not in a New Year's Six bowl, this is the bowl game we're going to have. I think UCF likes it that way because it's cheaper. Number one. Number two, it gets us exposure in Tampa, and it kind of reinforces the Tampa's hometown team. I mean, it's kind of funny this year. The Cows were playing, here in Orlando, and we're playing in Tampa, or no, they're playing in Boca, in the actual South Florida, and we're playing in Tampa. So, I think we talked about this working out as well as it did. This game is a better game than what we could have had. And, I think our brand and being in the Big 12 helped with that. There's some intrigue with Coach Key, being a former UCF coach. There's some intrigue with George O'Leary. There's some intrigue because Georgia Tech is kind of miffed that we beat them the last two times. There's an intrigue because Brent Key admitted that he cried after the last loss. There's a lot of storylines with this game, and the UCF, Georgia Tech's a 6-6 team. They were 5-3 in the ACC. Very similar type season to what we had. They run a similar, not the same type of system. We do rank higher than them offensively, and we do rank higher than them defensively, believe it or not. But they're going to be a running team. They have a dual threat quarterback, who had 26 passing TDs, rushed for 648 yards, and had 9 rushing TDs. So we're going to be playing a similar team makeup offensively as what we play as well. So that'll be interesting. Georgia Tech is top 20 in rushing yards. So, we talk about how hard it's going to be to stop the run. We talk about it all the time. Run fits, making sure that we're stopping the run, etc. It's going to be another one of those games. So if we don't stop the run, it's going to be a long weekend for UCF. Also, something interesting this week, none of the players had interviews. So traditionally, we've always had player interviews.
They had them today, Wednesday. They're having them. They are having them.
They are having them?
Yeah.
Why wait until the last minute?
I don't know why they did it like that this year, but I still get all the emails. I'm still on the media list for UCF, and I saw that come across the other day that I think it's I got to find the email.
Did they say who it was going to be? Because I think there may be
Captains.
some captains. Okay. So, because to me, like the intrigue was, okay, if we're going to have that, why are we waiting so long? Is it because we don't know whether they're going to play or not? You know what I mean? So obviously if it's captains, JRP will be out there. Powley will be out there.
Actually, today they had select players available after practice. So you should start seeing that stuff pop up. And then they leave on Tuesday, and then Gus has a press conference. Henshaw has a press conference, and Williams does. And then Wednesday, they're going to have Plumlee, Jason Johnson, and Paoli, or however you say his name. And then Gus is going to have he's going to have a signing day thing. It's all right here. Sorry.
No, that's fine. The crazy thing for me is usually there's the bowl sponsored one, right? So there's the bowl sponsored press conference, and there's one that the school does announcing the bowl or immediately after the bowl announcement. And there wasn't one. So the other thing with Gus and Andrew, if you're still keeping up with the media stuff, they don't have very much media. Like Gus runs a really tight ship. So when it comes to that,
and
kind
it's
of
all
stuff,
coach speak from Gus. He never says anything really in his press conferences. You really have to
he's called the coaches out a couple of times when he's really frustrated. And the other thing that you'll notice with Gus is he'll start tapping his pen when he's really mad. That's when you know he's mad at somebody.
Yeah.
He'll also do this little tap thing on his hand. You can see him on the edge of the podium, and it's his hand going back and forth like that. Yeah, Andrew's seen that. You can see he has a couple of tells.
He definitely has a couple of tells. I wouldn't. I don't think he should be playing poker. So that being said, it's a pretty interesting matchup, and we'll go into a little bit more of the details as far as that's concerned. But also, if you look at strength of schedule and who we've lost to compared to who they've lost to, it's a similar type of opponent that they've lost to that we lost to. The difference is we didn't have our starting quarterback for half the season. So, I think a lot of those, I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago. A lot of those games for us were still close games that we lost. I think all of them but 2 were within 3 points. And I think it was like 3 or 4 of them were within 1 point. So, to me, this should be a dub. And the matchup predictor that Andrew loved for so long says that we should absolutely win this game. And it's close to home for us, but they're going to have a chip on their shoulder, and it'll be an interesting matchup. What do you guys think? So let me start with you, Tre.
Yeah, I mean, the guys have to – it's their last game for a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys this season didn't go the way we wanted, but you can kind of end it with a statement. This is an ACC team. That's how you should look at it. Hey, we can end our season. If we can blow the doors off of a ACC team that had fairly good success in the conference, it can not only end some of these guys' careers on a high note, but kind of catapult you into that next season and building off of that. And I hope to really see a lot of the younger guys playing, just because I want them to experience. Again, the bowl game is fun because most of the times you're playing a team that you realistically won't play. A lot of the times it's different styles, but for this one, it's going to be a similar style. We've seen a lot of these run-heavy teams. With all of this time we've had off, which has been, three weeks now, can you guys make the corrections? Can the coaches make the corrections? So I really want to see what our coaches can do, what some of these young guys can do. And, again, the seniors, they should be playing to, again, end. You want to end it on a high note. You never want to end your career, losing a bowl game, and you want to end it, as best as you can. So it'll be interesting to me. Coach Key, he was there when I was there the first few years. He's going to have his guys ready. He's always been a hype guy like that to try to get his guys up. And they've rallied around him this season. I've tuned into some of their games. They've rallied around him, especially from that Miami win with the whole Mario Cristobal not taking a knee. From that point, they've kind of gravitated to him. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to be a dynamic for just everybody. And I want to use this to kind of catapult us into 2020 and build off that, because we've seen flashes of this team. We've seen flashes from the young guys. Maybe we can just put it together one more time and send us off with a high note.
All right, Alan, Levin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a interesting game just because of all the storylines that we've all discussed with, obviously O'Leary and Brett Key, and, the fact that we've played Georgia Tech fairly recently, so a lot of the same players are going to be there. But yeah, I mean, pretty much what Tre said. I mean, we want to finish the season off with a win. We finished by winning 3 of our last 4 games. We're able to attain bowl eligibility on the very last week of the season. So to, go over 500 in our first year in the Big 12, I think would be a really big success. I mean, before the season, we all talked about 6 to 8 wins being realistic. So if we, go right in the middle, there was 7, win our bowl game, especially after, losing to Duke last year in that fashion, we ended our season and really had a sour taste in our mouth. And I think see a preview a little bit of next year, if our 3-headed monster is staying and, some of these young guys get playing time in this this game. We're going to see a little bit of a preview of next year. So I always like to look at that because this essentially is an exhibition, but you're going to, start to see some bright spots for the team for next year's team. So like you said, Tre, I think, we saw flashes of it. Can we sustain it and, get another Power 5 win at the end of the day? So I'm excited for it to see our guys one last time and see some of these seniors that actually finished with us, didn't transfer. Guys like Tremont Morris-Brash and JRP and Alec Holler, if he's not staying for a 7th year. And, some of these other guys that have been here for, 4 or 5 years, or even the ones that have only been here for a couple of years. This is a really nice senior class, and it would be nice to see them, go out with a win.
Awesome. That's a good recap. All right, Andrew, what do you think of this bowl game?
Well, the interesting thing to me is we haven't heard of any opt-outs yet. So I'll be interested to see who opts out and who is really into it and who's not. I think for JRP to go out with a win after this and the rest of the guys that are moving on, I think that's huge, like Tre said. It makes sense to play in the Gasparilla Bowl for our fan base to be able to get there. I also wonder what that crowd is really going to look like, though, being not a game that's super exciting against Georgia Tech. So that'll be a little bit interesting. I know we sold out our tickets pretty fast. That's a big, big part of bowl games, and that's a big reason why the Gasparilla Bowl makes so much sense. It's not – I'd like for our players to get to go someplace a little bit more exciting because that's a good – I went to Hawaii in our bowl game at Kansas.
I remember Frost's first year, I think we were either supposed to go to the Bahamas Bowl or the Cure Bowl and went to the freaking Cure Bowl. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Well, and that was a debacle.
Yeah.
But the season after that turned out to be really good. So I've been telling everybody, all year long or the last couple weeks anyway, that remember what happened the last time we had a record like this. We went to a bowl game, we lost, but the next season after that was 12-0. So I'll take that. I'll take a bowl loss, and I'll take this kind of a record if we can have a good year after it, I guess. I don't know. I'm not going. I'm going to watch it on TV. I don't want to go to Tampa. Just like the thing said down there. I agree. Tampa is not exciting. It's not. I don't know.
So let me
bowl
ask you
games
this,
were
Andrew.
always.
Let me ask you this real quick. All right, so we're talking about bowl game opponents. Is Georgia Tech less exciting than having a revenge game versus Duke?
I think either one of those were not exciting.
Yeah.
When I first heard that it was
either, to be honest.
When they first put out that it was Duke, I was like, "What? Oh man!"
Yeah.
And then Georgia Tech's not exciting. I mean, you want to play if you can, you want to play an upper tier team, and I really don't consider Georgia Tech an upper tier team, We weren't.
I wanted UM from the jump. That's who I wanted to play.
Yeah, that would have been exciting.
Yeah,
and Florida last year was incredibly exciting.
Those kind of games, I think that's what I would have done. Just make it an in-state games that, teams are gonna. Everybody in Florida reps somebody from the state if you're a fan. So I think having those games, those are the games that are fun to me. So Georgia Tech it's cool. It's better than Duke because I would never want to see a rematch, but it's not like that's really the only reason. I just didn't want to see a rematch with Duke.
Yeah, it's like I said a few weeks ago. Like if when you're 6-6, you're not going to have your pick of the litter for the teams that you can play against. But look what happened when we had 8 wins in Gus's first year and UF had 6 wins. They put us together and that game sold out in 2 seconds. There was a ton of excitement. So I agree. Like if you can't get a top tier opponent because your record is, so-so or average or just 6 wins, try to put the coolest matchup. So Miami that was a prime opportunity. That game would have sold out. There have been a lot of excitement, a lot of fan base, but yeah, I agree that this game at Georgia Tech's not that exciting other than the GOL storyline behind it.
Yeah. And that is exciting. I mean, that stuff, that's very rare that happens where, you have your former coach and your former head coach in waiting and all that stuff. So that's a storyline for sure. I don't know how much difference that's going to make actually in the game, but it's fun to talk about, I guess. And it'll be interesting to hear, what George O'Leary says. I don't know if he's said anything about it yet, but, could be interesting. I know that some of the Georgia Tech guys are there from before. And I saw a press conference of those guys and revenge from the last game that we played them and was mentioned a couple of times by them. So
not only that, but there's some Florida kids that know our Florida kids that are there too.
There is on every team. I mean, pretty much.
Yeah, you're gonna have Florida kids on any good team. There's gonna be some Florida kids.
Yeah. So
all right.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
I'm not going.
That's it.
I'm watching on TV.
I'm not excited. I'm done.
Yeah.
All right.
No,
I put Josh on there for a reason, Nobra. Nobra's starting to.
He's trying to troll me. So Andrew, would you go to a game?
You
in
are
Tampa
not the captain.
Would you go to a game in Tampa if it was Miami versus UCF?
Yes.
I would go to that game. Yeah.
Oh no!
See,
I would make sure I was at that game.
That's my point.
But I can't say that either because I went to the Marshall game and I went to the Arkansas State game. So it's a close drive. I'm going to go if I can.
I'd say the casual fan would go to a UCF Miami game. The diehard fans would probably go to almost any game. But it's not a great time. We're right around Christmas. It's not the best of all times. Like you got to take off work for half or most.
I think you just said that I'm not a diehard.
No, that's not what I said. I said no, not all. But
there it is. Roger's typing it right now.
You're right. B. So the reality is, this is the most exciting game, and neither is Duke. And so I'm not that interested. I'm just not. I hope we win. I hope the team has lots of great practices. I hope they enjoy the fair that happens or whatever. But it's 2 hours away, and it's not a team that's of interest. We've seen this show before many other times. Josh says, "Man, this is why you have to watch this on YouTube." But it's true. I'm not like, yeah, we're playing Georgia Tech. And it's not because it's Georgia Tech. There's other teams that I'd be like, all right, this is good. It's
just not a new team that hasn't been like it's not like when we played Stanford for the first time or Stanford sucks. I mean, let's be real. They suck at football right now. And it wouldn't be exciting because we're playing Stanford football. It's exciting because it's a new team. So
I think last year was kind of exciting because we never played them before.
Yeah. So
I think we probably played more bowl games in Tampa than anywhere else too. Right?
Not part of my fun facts today, but I mean that you're hitting around the spot of what we're going to be talking about in that segment. But we played a lot there too, and forget just Tampa. We also played at the Trop a few times, so we're used to going over to that side of town.
That was horrible.
Oh God, they were. Unless you bought Bitcoin at that point, then you're good.
So no baseball fields for football.
Oh, horrible.
No.
Horrible. So, all right, let's go ahead and finish this up. The Gasparilla Bowl will have actually what we're going to do. We are going to do a score prediction segment this week. So, Andrew, what is your score prediction for this game?
21-14 UCF. I don't know.
Just 21-14. Well, the last one was 27-10, so you may not be that far off.
Yeah, 21-14. Just to make it easy, I think that we win. I really do. If we can't beat Georgia Tech, I think there's something wrong.
I think this is going to be a fast game. Both teams are going to want to ground pound. We are going to do what we always do, which is we'll hit the ground running. But we'll also want to pop those big plays. One of the things that was different this year than was last year was our average per catch and per play was around 10, 11 yards. So we were popping kind of like Frost era, run, but then pop a big one. That's kind of what I expect this game to be. Although the last game, they started out on the last couple games, they started out throwing the ball because they were a lot more confident in JRP and his ability to throw the ball, and kind of broke the game up that way. So it'll be interesting to see if we take the approach of, hey, let's go for the big play first, or if we ground pound to set up the big play later. And I feel like we would be better served doing the former than the latter. So that's just my thoughts on
some trick plays too. I'm excited about that. There will be some. Gus will whip something up.
Oh yeah, he will. It'll be a triple reverse quarterback
Statue of Liberty or something.
Statue of Liberty
hidden ball
back pass on the 3-yard line. So that that's what it'll be. But all right, so that's it for this. So Andrew, thank you for giving us your score predictions. Thank you for joining us. Anything you want? I know you said you didn't want to stick around for basketball, so we're going to be talking a little hoops next. Was there anything you wanted to shout out to the fans? Remind people where you are. Obviously, the Nightline Sports Network Twitter account still exists.
It does, but I use my own a little bit more now. AP_Nightline, easy to find on X or Twitter. I don't know what you call it now. But a little disappointing for this season, but kind of what I expected. Looking towards the future, can't wait for next football season. Like, the season went so fast. I was telling you guys before, I don't know if I said it while we were live or not, but like, for me, not doing the things that I did doing the podcast for the first time this year, I got to watch things a little bit different, more from a fan side versus, somebody that really had to pay attention to everything. I didn't know who every player was. Names and numbers and faces didn't really match up for me. But, I still love the Knights, and I'll always be a fan. Just because I stopped doing the podcast and the shows does not mean that I'm not a fan, obviously. I'm still, always wearing UCF gear and all that stuff. So thank you very much for having me on. You guys are doing a great job. I'm glad to see that it's going good. You got a good group of guys here. So I appreciate it.
Yep, and we'll keep bringing you on, and I'm sure we'll get to a point sometime in the off season where we can truly have a full reunion with Tre and Ben and me all on at the same time. So thank you.
I really like your glasses, Josh. Those things are awesome.
Thanks.
Every time you were talking, that's all I could look at.
These are the first time I actually didn't get a whole new set of frames and just got new glasses, because I love them too. So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Those are awesome. All right.
All right, Andrew. Thank you to UCF's OG podcaster, someone who started me in the podcasting and radio community. Told me that I didn't need 9 pages of notes for my first show. Taught me a lot about, how to organically speak and get us to a point where we're able to put the show on for you today. So thank you, Andrew. Excited to have you back on later, and enjoy the bowl game. I'm sure we'll be texting all kinds of madness about it.
All right. Go Knights.
Charge on, my. All right, that was Andrew Phegley, good friend of the show, good friend of mine personally, and good all-around person. Excited to have him stop by, and excited to have him stop by more often. So I'm glad he said that. And without further ado, let's go ahead and move on to Tre yelling at Cloud. Tre, what do you have to yell at this week? It's kind of a weird week. It's kind of an off week. There's not really a whole lot of football going on. What are you yelling at this week?
Man, my Miami Dolphins, man, they disappointed me the other day. But that was really it, just the Dolphins.
Yeah, you ditched us for a game that was terrible for the Dolphins. That's what you get.
You're talking about 2 weeks ago, and not the 30-0 win.
Exactly. Like, what's going – don't get me started. But, I mean – really, there's nothing to yell about. I think really it's just going to be
Aren't you supposed to be a Falcons fan?
Yeah, right. I'm not any Atlanta fan. I've been through plenty of torture growing up. I'll never do that.
Hey,
Are
dude,
you
I'm a
kidding me?
Bengals fan. What are you talking about? Like talking
tell
about
Arthur
torture? I don't want to
Blank.
hear anything like that. You guys had Andre Rison for a while there.
Yeah, Deion Sanders, yeah. But that was but my top, like I became a fan of like all Atlanta teams when I was like 6, 7. So that was like Michael Vick. That was when the Braves were really like they were reeling off pennants. The Hawks were horrible.
Bro, they're still competitive. I mean,
they're competitive.
The Braves are still competitive.
The thing about the Braves,
be a Reds fan like me. Come on now.
Well, so I'm gonna tell you why I'm a Dodgers fan now, just to let everybody know.
A Doyers fan?
Dodgers.
Doyers.
No, Dodgers.
Anybody from Southern California knows it's Doyers versus Angels.
But so I was a big because I'm a big baseball guy. I was a big Rafael Furcal fan. I know all those like Marcus Giles, Chipper Jones, Andrew Jones. I was like Andrew Jones and Rafael Furcal were my favorite players. So when they left, Braves got cheap, didn't want to pay him. Andrew Jones and Furcal ended up going to the Dodgers. So I'm like, man, you guys have broke my heart. We always lose to the Astros. I'm going to the Dodgers too. So I've been a Dodgers fan for a good little bit now. As far as that, I stopped the Falcons. Once Michael Vick got in trouble, they weren't as exciting to watch. So I was like, I need to find another team. And I've never really been a Hawks fan just because they've always stunk in my life. So Atlanta teams are no go for me.
All right. So for those of you that are watching the YouTube show, you'll see that we have a little bit of a spat going on in the the messaging at the bottom. But I'm definitely more traumatized as a sports fan. And Tre just completely gave up on his hometown. And, I'm just going to say I'm still a Cincinnati fan. That's why it's Knight Bengal, right? Knights and Bengals. In spite of what's going on this season. No, they're not. Not without Joe Burrow. This is an average Cincinnati season because Burrow's out, right?
What?
So what? It's 7-6 or 8-6 now? Are they 8-6 now?
Y'all are 8-6.
Yeah, 8-6. It's an average season. If we had Burrow, we'd be blowing teams out, bro. We have at least 2 or 3 more wins. So, as much as I hated Burrow after the bowl game, I love Burrow as my quarterback. So, we'll just let bygones be bygones. All right. So, real quick, we're gonna move on because we kind of have to move faster because we took a little while with Andrew. Browning has been making miracles while Burrow's away. Just saying, but look at the scoring compared to the rest of the year. So,
pivot.
All right, so pivot. Yeah, we're pivoting to UCF Student Re-Education, and this week, what we're going to be educating Noah to is the party places and stories throughout the year. So I'm going to let you guys kind of talk it out. And I don't know, Alan or Josh, which one of you went to school before the other? Because I want to do this like in order of era.
I think I'm the earliest. 97.
When did you start?
When I started.
When was it?
97.
Oh, I was 10 years after that.
Oh, yeah. You were before me, dude.
Freaking caveman in here, man. What's going on?
Dude,
I know. I look
Are
young,
you that?
man.
Are you? I didn't even think you were older than me. Holy moly! What's going on right now?
Good genes. Yeah, I actually think I figured that out a couple weeks ago, but I didn't bring it up. Yeah, I believe I am the oldest in the show. Amazingly enough, it doesn't look that way except for Tre. That's a given. But
all right, so what was going on in 1997? Where did people party? And what did they do in 1997? What did the party scene at UCF, which was then known? Wow.
Look at me. You think I was partying a lot?
I'm glad you said age manipulation and not something else. So that being said, Josh, where were you partying? And, what genre of music were you listening to back then? Were you like grunge banding it out, or what were you doing?
So 97 through. Okay, so when I was in high school, I went through a couple of phases. I loved heavy metal, still do. I loved hardcore rap and hip hop, still do. Grew up in New York, so I remember the exact place I was when I heard on Hot 97 that Biggie died. Like, big into it, yeah. So, anywho,
Everybody
so I
heard
was
when Biggie died, dude.
I didn't.
You didn't hear about Biggie die?
What year did he die?
Pretty sure it's 96 because I was
Did
driving.
you think he was still alive, Trey?
I might have just been fresh out the womb, man.
Yeah, I was 7 when that happened, so I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in March of, I think, 96. I'm just triple checking. But I think it was in March of 96, 97, March of 97. I was 17 and actually, just turned 17. And I was going to school and I was driving over the tracks on the Syosset Railroad going to high school. And I remember hearing it.
Dude, we're talking about partying now. We're not
I
talking
know,
about like bringing something. Like, what was the party scene like?
So more about Notorious B.I.G. No. Okay, so the party scene. So I remember going. So I had to wait a full semester or so because I wasn't 18 when I got into college. So at that point, I was going to downtown Orlando a lot. So I think downtown Orlando was a big place for what we were doing as college students. I remember going to Underground Blues a little bit, and was it Liquid Cellar, that little sticky shoes on the ground place in that old plaza next to the movie theater that's now where Bar Louie and all that stuff got shut down. That was most of what I remember. Look at this face. I wasn't a hardcore partier. I will tell you though, there was a significant I hung out with some fraternities that were more popular. Well, I won't say more popular, but they were around back then, like Delta Tau Delta, a lot in the what we called the probably not a good term for it, but the Greek place off campus. So yeah, it was a lot of fraternity parties with friends, going to downtown Orlando, and having my shoes sticking to Liquid Cellar. And Underground Blues was a really cool place. That was a nice vibe. But my music was Mace.
No Firestone for you, no anything like that.
I went to Firestone. I remember a little bit. I remember waiting in line to buy Eminem CDs at the CD shop over across the street from Alafaya. So it's a different time. So yes, and that's DTD, not Tridelt, that was in the chat. But I wasn't that cool to hang out with them or KD's at that point, to be fair and frank. I don't know who's cool nowadays, but I was at a Pi Phi level, Pi Beta Phi. I had a bunch of friends in there. And they were wonderful. So yeah, I mostly downtown and the clubs around here. I had some friends. It was a little after. I have some friends that went to 8 Seconds and a couple of those more country bars. Yeah.
Okay, Josh, you're not selling our era at all. So I'm just gonna bring Alan up to the next era.
That wasn't cool.
So 10 years later. Since Josh didn't party anywhere, no Firestone glow stick stories, no wrestling at
you didn't talk about raves. That's a whole.
What was that beach club that they had back then? Something
Zuma Beach Club.
Zuma Beach. No mud wrestling at Saturday at 2 a.m. At Zuma Beach, dude. I'm sorry, you missed it. So I party with Alpha Tau Omega too when we were on campus. So the great thing about being an engineer and having people rush for you is you could go party with those guys while they had to go through rush, guarding the float and doing all the things that they were doing. And then you could go party and then go study later and not have to put up with all the stuff that went on with Fraternity Row.
Fair.
So
I wasn't going to talk about my EDM and raves in the middle of the forest stuff, but if we want to talk about that in another time, maybe.
I think we should save that because we've now got goth, hardcore rock, you've got metal, you've got rap, and now we've got EDM. So Josh can be a DJ at any event that you'd like because he knows it all.
I could.
All right. So Alan, what was your party? Where were you partying 10 years later?
Yeah, so my era, the year, it kind of changed almost yearly, but because like bars would get shut down or whatever. But going into freshman year, the big place was Pounders. That was my summer freshman year. Everyone went to Pounders and Scoop, and then freshman year as a whole, most people went to Pounders and Scoop. The music was pretty much rap and hip hop. At that time it was still kind of peak. Like Lil Wayne was really big then. That was like peak like hip hop before all the mumble crap that comes out now. So then
that was not peak hip hop, but that's besides the point.
I mean, if you compare it to like the 90s, no, but like the end of the peak was there, and then it kind of died off after that. Like you had Lil Wayne, you had the start of Drake and Young Money and all that. So it was a pretty cool time. But then really like sophomore and junior year, you still had like Pounders, Scoop, and Library were like the big three that everyone went to. Then Pounders closed down and TD's opened up, which I actually bartended at TD's and Liquid Cellar. They're owned by the same guys. So all of the fraternities went there, and I was in a fraternity. So we pretty much went where.
Dude, Devaney's.
Yeah, I was going to say, hold on. So Devaney's was where most of our brothers worked at. So we would go to Devaney's on Mondays. Was the big one. And then, then on the weekends, it'd be the other bars I mentioned. And then once we turned 21, we'd start to go downtown a lot. You go on the party buses that would take you down there, and you have socials and stuff. So we would go to that time. Church Street was the biggest one. So we go to like Bliss and Chillers and Latitudes and all of those on Church Street. Sometimes go to Wall Street for like Taco Tuesday and stuff like that. But honestly, the local scene was great. I mean, I think I've heard from people now that it's died off, but the local scene was awesome back when I was there. So it was. The peak was Scoop, Library, Pounders, Devaney's, and then TD's for a little bit. And then towards the end, pretty much there was a couple other bars that opened up. And that the Plaza was great because the Plaza then Liquid Cellar turned into Foo Bar, and Foo Bar was a lot of fun. A lot of fraternities went there. Foo Bar and Library were in the same one. And you saw TD's and Scoop, and then a couple of them closed down, but pretty much my whole 4 years there, all the local bars were popping for the most part, except for when Pounders closed down. But then, so Devaney's, Library, Scoop, and then towards the end, everything turned into EDM. Like I never really got into that scene, but like, it went from like drinking and smoking to like everyone doing Molly in like junior, senior year.
Whoa, did we just go R-rated?
I mean, I'm just saying what happened. I mean, that's what happened.
History lessons. These are just history lessons.
This is just history lesson. Yeah. So EDM got
allegedly
really
happened.
Not what you heard. Heard. Molly was way popular in the late 90s.
Hey,
I'm just saying. I'm just telling you.
We're not talking about this stuff. This is a clean show. E for everyone.
All right. I'm just telling you the era of when I was there. Maybe it was around when you were there. I'm just saying how it progressed in my era. It was like that everyone started going the EDM route. Avicii came on campus and sold out, and everyone was going crazy for that. So, I mean, for me, the local scene was big, but we would do downtown on the weekends, especially when we turned 21, and a lot of socials were on there. I was in DU, and we did a lot of those socials down there. But honestly, the local scene was best because we had door guys and bartenders that worked at all the bars. So our big ones were Devaney's and Scoop and Library. But now from what I understand, I think only Library is the only one standing that's remained.
Night Library, and now you've got the Bounce House, I guess.
Yeah, and then we had also a bar called Jake and Mickey's that not many people went to, and then also Scoop opened up a bar like right next to it called, I think, the Dungeon it was called. So a lot of people went there too. And then Foo Bar got really, really big for a couple of years once it transitioned from Liquid Cellar to that. But I worked at TD, so I had a lot of friends and fraternity brothers that came in there, and I was, would go in and drink for free a lot when I wasn't working. So my era was fun. It's not like how it is now. I heard like the local scene is dead. So when I was there, it was a lot of fun.
All right, Tre Neal, as a football player, you never had time to go out ever. Where were the spots that the football team was going?
No, I mean, it was similar to Allen. I think Library, that was, where the football team was going. And okay, I'm going to start from the top. When you're 18, 19, you stay local, can't really get downtown anywhere. So it was Library, pub, And that was pretty much the only two at the time as far as local. I mean, once we were playing, I hung out with all the guys on the team. So if everybody's going downtown, I'm going downtown. I don't care. So we would go downtown. We went to, I forget the name of the places now. Wow. But I mean, we would go everywhere. We'd just go wherever anybody knew somebody.
Tier.
We went to Vane Tier. Yeah. Vane Tier. There's one more.
Vane Tier. Basement.
Not basement.
Attic.
Not attic.
One on Wall Street, Cantina.
Here, I have to ask my wife. She knows. But yeah, I mean, we used to go with everybody. We'd bring the softball team, football team, basketball. Like I can say that my time there, those groups, we all had fun with each other. We all went. We were deep everywhere we went. We were athletes. We all obviously looked a little different than most people. I mean, when you're bringing guys that are 6'8" around, you're gonna get a couple of stares looking at you. So. Yeah, I mean, and that was really what we did. And we threw house parties because you really don't have time during the week to kind of go out. And, again, you're prepping all week. They take us away Friday. Saturday you play. You're not really up to it a lot unless it's an early game. And then Sunday you're kind of getting right back at it. Nothing really happening.
All right, so I want to know, did you and Frost go and, pick up chicks across the street on campus?
No, never. Coach Frost didn't let anybody hang. We rarely hung out with him outside of, like, at least the defensive guys. I don't know, the offensive guys maybe. But, I mean, he was a cool guy. I mean, he was running around campus with his shirt off, flexing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
we've heard the stories.
Yeah. Listen, UCF, that time was a place to be, man. It was a fun time. But yeah, we just hung out with those guys, and again, we do like wind down Wednesday during like some of the older guys, where we'd go downtown and we just hang out, man. It was we just did so much to just hang out. But yeah, library and then like my last few years, there was a place called Stagger Inn. I don't know if you guys remember.
Yeah,
and that was kind of where you kind of pivoted a little bit. It was fun, but that was really it. It was Stagger, library, pub, on campus. And then just wherever was popping downtown is where we went. So,
and that's where Tre met his wife, since they were all rolling so deep. So for those of you that don't know, Tre's wife is also
not meet my wife downtown, but
no, but she was an athlete as well, is what I meant.
Oh yeah. We met through athletes.
All right, so Josh, the intrepid reporter, tells us that Stagger Inn recently closed. So Noda, is there anywhere that you actually go out and have a good time now that you're an actual UCF college student?
I mean, I've gone to Chillers and Latitude. I've never heard of some of these other places. Pounders, Devaney, Scoop.
They closed down.
Well, Devaney's closed a while ago, but that was one of these spots back then.
Pounders closed
like
down
early 2000s.
The one of them closed when I first, like a couple of months when I got there, was Mad Hatters. I don't know if you guys remember that.
We didn't. Yeah, I heard that it was gone, or it wasn't there when I was there. Yeah.
I think they turned it into like an arcade or something. So
Mad Hatters
was talking about that.
You know where the across the street where all the student housing is now, like where like that used to be all like restaurant, like that used to be all bars and restaurants. Now it's like student housing, and I know there's a couple of restaurants, but that we used to call it the Plaza, and everyone went there. That was like the best place, but now they ripped it out.
There was like 2 or 4 movie theaters. The original Lazy Moon was right next to the movie theaters. That's where Underground Blues was. If you heard of Liquid Cellar, that was around there too. And they had like a liquor store and shopping market.
Or libraries.
The only thing that survived there is the McDonald's. That McDonald's just doesn't die.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the problem with that McDonald's, though, is they actually had a lot of UCF paraphernalia that when they did the remodel did not make it. Like some serious UCF paraphernalia. So that kind of sucks. But outside of that, looks like you need to like take a few trips to the bounce house. I know you work really, really hard putting together all this stuff for us and our shenanigans. But it sounds like we all had a lot better time in college than you did. So that is your student re-education for this week. thank you for taking a trip down memory lane with us. We learned a lot about Josh. We found out there were many onions, layers to the onion of Allen with the revelation that he reported for the future. But I think we learned more about Josh this week. And remember, if he ever is your professor one semester, you can keep that in your back pocket. That's all I'm going to say with that. So, all right, moving on. That takes care of that. I don't think we're going to do text talk this week for Hoops Edition, just because we're already at 155. Let's jump right into our Hoops review. So we played Maine tonight during the recording of this podcast, and they finished up right before we started recording. UCF did win that game. They were favored to win 89% by the matchup predictor. Honestly, this game, having watched it, this was a more even matchup on paper than it was during the game. And the difference was defense. Going into it, Maine was on a four-game win streak, averaged 70.4 points per game to our 78, which is kind of crazy for a Johnny Dawkins team, but that speaks to our ability to do that, to play really, really well and play good offense with that depth that we have. Points against 63.2 versus 67.7. Field goal percentage, they averaged 47%. We averaged 43.5. Had a big rebounds advantage, and they are a pretty good 3-point shooting team. So this Maine actually is a program that's been building for a while, and led by one of their alum. That this was a game that could have gone the other way, considering we were just coming off of a tight loss against Ole Miss. But we ended up shooting 46.4%. But the defense really came through. They shot 34.4. There were a lot of turnovers. We had 21 points off of 21 turnovers by the half. Our free throw shooting percentage was abysmal again at 60.9. But what's interesting is theirs was worse at 50%, which was nuts. They were 1 for 19 behind the arc, and we were 8 for 19. Darius DJ started hitting his 3-point shot early. He hit 2 in a row, and Marcellus Avery shot pretty well. But the reason they were 1 for 19 is because they were all contested shots. And, when we collapsed the defense, we got out to the arc and got a hand in their face every time. So the difference is in the learning curve that I wanted to see from the 3-point defense was getting out to the line after we collapsed the defense on the paint. We saw, now again, this is Maine, right? But a fairly good Maine. And we did that really, really well. So it'll be interesting to see how we've got one more game that's out of conference, but it'll be interesting to see if we can put those lessons together. And when we add Walker back into the mix, how our defense holds up against those Big 12 teams that shoot. We had 14 assists to their 10. We had 8 blocks to their 2. They had pretty good size. Our guys just, I don't know. I mean, they're just that much better players. If you want to see what the difference is between previous, I was thinking during the game, it's like those tough Memphis teams. If we put all those years we were playing behind Memphis, if we put this team against Memphis, there's a good chance that this team runs the floor with them. So I do think this roster is better than what we had in the American by a wide margin. We had 11 points off of turnovers, which was awesome. We had 16 fast break points that was missing before. We played the press pretty much the entire game in spurts when it made sense for us to do that and really harass them. We had 34 points in the paint. They actually had more, 36. And our largest lead was 32. I mean, the score ended up being 74-51. This could have been a closer game, but the defense really just smothered them. We went on runs, and the offense was steady. and scored when it needed to. Allen looked great again tonight. Not our Allen, but Shamari Allen looked great again tonight. At point, he started the point. DJ did not start for the first time in, I think, 24 consecutive games. And the reason for that was he didn't practice the night before. It's a longstanding Johnny Dawkins rule that if you do not practice the night before, you do not start. So he came off the bench, but he played really, really well. And Shamari Allen played with confidence and played really well at the point this game as well. So that bodes well for us as we move into conference season as well. Anything else you kind of want to talk about, guys, with regard to this game?
Just got 2 games left now until conference play. So we should finish out with wins. I think it's FAMU and one other team I'm forgetting, but they're 2 teams we should beat. So could finish out our non-conference play 9-3 heading into that first game against Kansas State, which I'm pretty excited to see, some of these big teams we're going to be playing. I mean, right off the bat after that, we played Kansas at home for our first ever Big 12 home game. So that's a really cool, kind of historic first ever home game to play a top, 2-3 team in the country.
Yeah, and you've got Oklahoma, which is at 10-0 right now too, right? So next we have Florida A&M, December 21st at 7 p.m. Then Bethune versus Bethune, and then we're on the road at K-State, at home against Kansas, then at BYU, which is really, really tough, also ranked number 17 this year. At Texas, at Houston. So think about this. Kansas State is not ranked. Kansas is number 2. BYU is number 17. Then we play Texas at 19. Then we play Houston number 3. And we don't get a break until West Virginia, January 23rd.
Yeah.
That's what this conference is in basketball, guys.
Let's get one. Just one. Start there. Just
listen.
First.
We are actually in the thick of the middle of this, and the only reason we're lower, we're above West Virginia, we're above Oklahoma State. Those are the bottom 2. The only reason we're lower is because we haven't played as many games. So as far as our record is concerned, we are in the middle of the fight since Tre was wanting to point that out. That being said, this team actually has the capacity, and they've showed the resilience, and that it has the tools and the ability to make some noise. So we'll see what kind of noise and how much noise they can make. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Walker gets back into the mix, because that'll be another weapon that we can use defensively and on the boards. And Josh says mid. So I think the mid teams will definitely win against, but we've got a slate of really, really strong teams to play against to start, and we knew this would be the case. But if we do halfway decent, you get 6 or 7, right, wins. That may be enough for a tournament team in this conference. So, don't get too discouraged during the season. This is going to be unlike the American. If you lose 2 or 3 games, you're out of it, and then the rest of it, you really don't have a shot at the tournament. We realistically have a shot at the tournament all year long. So I think that'll make the season more interesting. Alan?
Yes.
I think Nobra was just messing with you. For those of you that were watching, Alan was on his phone and he just popped up and he was like,
"Just getting my stat of the week up."
Okay, he's getting his stat of the week up. All right. So I think that's all we really need to say about basketball. We'll talk a little bit about women's basketball when we get to that. So, as Alan said, it's his turn. Yeah. And this week's Alan's Oxymoronic stat of the week. Alan, take it away.
All right. So we play our final football game this Friday. So back to football stats. So Georgia Tech, as we talked about, is a team that we have played quite a lot over the years. So it is one of only 2 Power 5 teams, excluding Cincinnati and Houston, that we've played 5 times in school history. There's one other team in the Power 5 that we've played 5 other times. Does anyone know that team?
In the Power 5?
In the Power 5, yep.
That was not like G5 before, just
Correct.
constantly Power 5?
Correct. Yep. Not a former conference mate or anything like that.
Okay.
And it's a team that just like I would have not expected it. It's like you just have to guess because it's just extreme. I mean, unless you just remember it. We haven't. Last time we played them, I'll say, was in the previous decade. So from 2010 to 2020. So I don't give the exact year away. Is the last time we played them.
It's not. Is it Pitt?
Nope.
Auburn?
No, we've only played Auburn once.
2020.
No, we played Auburn more than once.
Really?
That observe.
Well, it's not them either way.
Trey?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know. It isn't UNC, and I know we dipped on Georgia Tech, or else it would be 6 times. The Hurricane game.
Well, Georgia Tech we played them. This is our 6th time, so I'm saying that, but not Georgia
Well, that
Tech.
would have been our 7th time if Trey
Auburn,
wasn't scared of
4 times.
hurricanes and decided to go home.
I don't do. I just show up and play who I can play. I don't do any of that other stuff.
All right, who is it, Alan?
It's South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, wouldn't have guessed that, right?
No.
Okay, so Georgia Tech is also the only Power 5 team that we have multiple wins against. So we've never beaten any other Power 5 team more than once other than Georgia Tech. Also, Georgia Tech, our 49-21 victory was the second most points that we've ever scored against a Power 5. We scored 52 is the most you scored. Who is that team that we scored 52 against, the Power 5?
Stanford?
Nope.
Was it?
Close.
Wasn't
though.
NC? Was it? No, Maryland?
Nope.
No, definitely wasn't Maryland. I was there at that game.
It was one of our best seasons ever.
2017 or 18, guys.
Or 2013.
Oh yeah, 2013.
Oh, Baylor.
Yep. Baylor, we scored 52 against Baylor. Then just a couple stats on Georgia Tech. They've actually led the ACC in rushing 13 of the last 20 seasons, the number 1 in rushing. So it's pretty dominant from a rushing standpoint. This year, they rank 3rd in the conference in total offense, which is the first time they've been, despite all those rushing being the top of rushing, it's actually the first time they've been top 3 in total offense since 2014. And we all like to hate on our run defense this year, but Georgia Tech actually has the 3rd worst rushing defense in the entire country. So this just may be a game where both teams are running all over each other because both are bad, but Georgia Tech is actually worse than ours. And those are my stats of the week.
Yeah, that makes for a quick bowl game. Not a 4-hour game.
A lot of eating clock.
So that's interesting. All right. Thank you for that, Alan. There were some head scratchers in there that I did not know. So thank you for bringing that up. That brings us to Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week. Josh?
Okay, so I will say Auburn. I was a little that Auburn thing puts me in my old man feels. We definitely played them more than once, although the only time it counts really is the one we played them that you remember. The rest of them, there's some controversy over some of those. So I have 2 ways I can go with this. I can talk about, you know what? I'll just do the one I thought. The Gasparilla Bowl had over 60,000 people in attendance at our last bowl game. Name the 3 other bowl games with more than 60,000 people in attendance and our total record in those total games.
60,000 that we've been a part of, obviously, you're saying?
Correct.
The bowl game against LSU.
Auburn?
No.
Auburn?
There wasn't
not.
60,000 attendance?
60,000.
Florida.
Really?
Florida.
Auburn?
Yep. Peach Bowl, but yes.
Fiesta?
That one, yes. 2013. I know you meant that since
That's
you
what
already
I
said
meant.
LSU.
Yeah, not the one.
Wait, to say the actual bowl name?
Fiesta
It's
Peach
fine.
Bowl.
There's
So
one.
Fiesta Beach and Gasparilla. Then
There's one more.
I thought you said 3. Oh, okay.
Bitcoin.
Well, Gasparilla is the one I already talked about at the top. There's 4 total. I talked about the
Fiesta
Gasparilla.
Peach. How about the
Bitcoin Bowl.
No,
St. Petersburg Bowl?
no.
The
Oh, the Liberty
the
Bowl?
Hawaii Bowl. Huh?
Liberty Bowl.
Hawaii?
Yes, the Liberty Bowl.
Versus
And
Georgia.
it wasn't the one versus Georgia. It was the MSU one where oh man, that was tough. I was sitting in the stands of that frozen solid, hearing the cowbells and that was the accent. It's MSU, and it was just in my ears the entire time, and we couldn't win that darn game. But yeah, and we are 3-1 in those games so far of bowl games that are over 60,000 people in the stands. I also, if I know we're tight on time, but I also have another one about the head coaches in bowl games if you want.
Okay.
Quickly.
UCF has had 4 head coaches that coached in bowl games. Who has the best bowl record?
Probably. See, Frost went 1-1. Gus is
Probably
1-1. Hypo went. He won Marshall.
He lost. He lost the what was it?
He lost the big one to LSU, and then
It's got to be O'Leary.
he's 1-2. It's got to be O'Leary.
So you are close. There's actually 2 coaches that are tied at the top. Frost and Malzahn are currently both 1-1 at 500. George O'Leary is won 3 out of his 7 bowl games. Heupel won 1 out of his 3 bowl games. So if we happen to win this bowl game this coming week, Gus Malzahn will be in the lead.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. We're going to keep you on the screen because we're going to let you do your own listener love this week because we have an inverted listener love this week. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. No, we're going to embrace this because I love this. I am very proud to announce that Josh Lazar, has earned the first troll of the Night of Ones podcast, and that was a troll comment of one of my YouTube shorts, and it was something I didn't understand, so I had to look it up. The quote was, "Dude looks like know-it-all from Polar Express, all grown up, laughing, crying face." Now, I wish maybe Nobra actually has this. I don't think we prepped that, but the reality is he's not lying. Now, not the actual actor. The actual actor, we do not look alike. In previous lives, in a couple years back, when I was much bigger than this, I usually got Drew Carey a lot. But that's not a bad comment. So I'm proud to say that I got the first troll comment of our podcast, and we might be playing around with that in a nickname. I don't know. Well, we can talk about that either now or another time.
Well, we will talk about that at another time just because of time constraints. However, I will say this: congratulations to you. I'm glad it wasn't me. I'm sure someone will make fun of me at some point. Oh wow,
yeah.
There it is.
It's not that far off. I mean,
if we took the beard off of you, I could totally see that. For our listeners, if you're just listening and you're not actually looking at the show, what I'd recommend you do is go Google that,
look online,
and then look at Josh.
I can totally that nose is pretty darn close. I mean, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
All
right, so that was what Josh looked like before he hit puberty. All right, moving along. So that takes care of listener love for this week. Quick update on other UCF sports, and I'll kind of talk about this one. UCF women's hoops lost a heartbreaker, and I actually watched that one today, at least the second half, 59-58. Josh was there on a last-second free throw. It was just a crazy sequence of events. This team looked like they could have pulled the trigger and pulled away at any time. Now, FAU. Everybody says, oh, it's FAU. Well, FAU has a pretty stacked roster as well. They actually have Lithuanian semi-pro player that was on the 18U, 21U. I don't know if they call it U. national teams over in Lithuania. So this was they have some good players on the team. However, in spurts, we just look when we played as if we meant it. We took over. We just didn't look like we meant it the whole time. So at the end of the day, this game came down to the last sequence. We were up 4. We allowed them to get back at the under 3 minute, at around the 3 minute mark. We had an inbound pass that was attempted into the paint, was not thrown high enough. It's a little crazy. Got picked off. They scored, tied it up. Then we made a mistake. We missed a shot early in the shot clock. They picked up the ball. Had a opportunity to shoot a shot, inbounded and shot a shot, missed the shot. It bounced back. One of their players screamed in with less than a second on the clock, got the ball, shot it up, released it at 0.4 seconds, and got fouled. And ended up missing the first one, made the second one, so it was a 1-point game. We had another inbound opportunity with 0.4 left, and for whatever reason, tried to throw it into the paint, and it was knocked out of bounds, and that was the end of the game. And that also ends our streak, which was at 8-0, and was the longest undefeated streak to start the season ever in women's basketball history. This is still a good team. I still recommend you go watch them, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Because tomorrow you have another opportunity to watch them at 2 p.m. as they play Morgan State at home before they start their conference play.
I will say, being there, the FAU's team, they shot lights out from 3. Like, everything was falling. They were at 70% shooting, 7 of 10 by the half, and they haven't shot this well from 3 the entire season. Like, they just were hitting everything, and a lot of them were pretty clean shots, sometimes off of an offensive rebound, sometimes people going under the screen versus over it, although our team was pretty good at not doing that. But they were down 7 often in the first, I want to say first half, the first couple of quarters, right? But man, I really wish they would have pulled it off, because it would have been nice. But I have a feeling they'll do well tomorrow too after this.
Oh yeah, I think this will be a big motivator for them. Yeah. All right, Alan, let's talk about bowl games.
All right, so far, obviously, there's only been 1 week of bowls, and I think 6 or 7 games. And as far as our conference mates, Texas Tech topped California 34-14. So the Big 12 is officially 1-0 in bowls so far. And then the next Big 12 bowl game is UCF that plays this Friday. So then the next one after that isn't for the following week. So kind of light schedule for the Big 12 to start, but they'll all start coming here in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. So super excited. Our bowl game will be this week. Let's go ahead and get in our score predictions, and then we'll finish out the show. So we're at 218, guys. So just keep that in mind. Start with your poison pill. So pick your poison. Tre Neal, this game against Georgia Tech. And what is your score prediction this week?
Pick my poison would be that we come out after 3 weeks of preparation. 3 weeks, right? It's around 3 weeks.
15 practices. Let's just call it that.
Yeah, 15 practices of preparation for one team. And we look like we just been drinking pina coladas all 15 practices and just hanging out.
You mean like you guys did? That worked out pretty well for you in 2017. I'm just saying.
We didn't drink pina coladas. We were practicing. But, I mean, just I want to see some kind of progress. I don't want to see, just the same old issues we've had all season. I expect it to be cleaned up. I expect it to be a clean game. We know what they're going to do. You have 15 practice. You never get 15 practices against one team, except maybe game 1, maybe from just the fall camp. But other than that, there should be nothing that fools them. There should be no missed run fits. There should be no issues in communication, things like that. So I think that will be the poison, is just we show up and act like we haven't been doing anything for the last 15 practices. My prediction is I think UCF wins 28-24. I'm with you, Roger. I think it'll be a quick game just because both teams want to run. But I do think the points will be scored, just not maybe, the high-flying 35, 40 points that we'd expect. I think both teams are going to kind of run themselves out of time. So I think I think they'll both be efficient, but we're going to run out of time trying to score. So 28-24 UCF.
All right. Alan Levin, why don't you pick your poison and give us your prediction?
Yeah, my poison would just be, as I said, Georgia Tech's a great running team, and we know the issues we've had against the run game all year. So I just don't want to see us get torched again in the run game, and just some of the progress we made over the last few weeks just get absolutely, go backwards and basically just have them run all over us. And, kind of what Tre said, just looking like we did in that middle part of the season during the losing streak, and, not show any sort of progress after having these 15 practices. So, I would like to see the run D, show some signs of life going into next year, have some confidence that it's getting better. I'm assuming some of the younger guys are going to play. I don't know if anyone's opting out. Maybe we'll find out. I'm assuming in the next couple of days. I don't know if a guy like, Tremont Morris-Brash, some of these seniors that are obviously moving on and have exhausted their eligibility are not going to be playing. And obviously we had some starters transfer like Corey Thornton. So hopefully that doesn't impact our defense too much, and we're able to hold them on the ground as best as possible and, get the win. But my prediction is 31-23 UCF.
Awesome. That sounds great. I like a 31-23 win. It's not too much anxiety around that. So I like our bowl season to end without anxiety.
We're favored by 4.5, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's quasi home game, and 4.5 is basically 50-50. Like it's like a 58-50 or 58-42. So Josh, I'm dreading to say this, but can you provide us the keys to the game and your poison and your score prediction? And I will tell you if it's Britney Spears,
Nope,
or Justin Timberlake, or Taylor Swift, I'm going to mute you.
First of all, I would never do any of those people. They aren't from Georgia. So, musical keys of the game. I'll make this easy for Tre. If I were to pick a group from Georgia that is in, say, the hip hop space,
Outkast.
Right on target. So Outkast is the first. Britney Spears. I'm doing Bill Withers. Britney Spears, come on. So I'll make it quick. Here are the musical keys. We got elevators, right? That emotion will be up and down. So we need to take charge of it. So fresh and so clean will be JRP's jersey, because we need the O-line to keep him off his back, or he needs to run. And maybe the opposite for the other team. And Hey Ya is interesting because that's actually about the current state of relationships in the 2000s. It's an interesting song. It's upbeat, but not so much really in the back end. This game is about the current state of our team. Can we be cooler than cool this game? I don't know. But I feel like what we're going to see is not only what this year really is about, but the years to come. So the poison, pick a poison this week for me is to make maybe a few mistakes in the game and have the mental lapses of a 5-game losing streak. If we can clean up not only the play, but our minds, I think we'll do well. But if we get down or behind a little bit and just go into a slump, we might have those same type of results. I don't think that'll happen. And it's interesting. A lot of people are talking about 21-23. 21 points is the lowest amount of points that Georgia Tech has scored so far this year. And the most points they've given up is 48. So my prediction is right around that middle. UCF 41, Georgia Tech 31.
41.
Awesome.
Wow. All right.
Josh is very, very confident.
I have to be. I'm not playing.
All right. Nobra,
Um,
what is your poison and your score prediction for this week?
I mean, just looking at Georgia Tech history, we've destroyed them the last 2 matchups. So I feel like we're gonna win. A poison. I don't know. They stop the run somehow. No idea. But my score prediction is 29-18 UCF.
All right. 29-18. Interesting choice. Okay. I'm going to go pick my poison and then what's happening right now? I'm going to pick my poison and give my prediction. I'll try to be brief as we're at 2:25. It seems to be going out 1 minute each time we do one of these. So I will say this. My poison is that we make some, we have more like 1 to 2 turnovers, because if this game is going to be all about the run game, there's question marks as to whether we're going to stop them, number 1. And number 2, if we do and we're both running the ball, it's going to be tough to overcome that unless we pop a couple of big time plays. So that's my poison, is if we have turnovers. That's it. We can run the ball as effectively as they can. If we don't stop them defensively, I am confident that we win. So for me, my prediction for this week, I'm actually going to say 28-17 UCF.
I like it.
All right. That wraps us up for this week. We had some fun. We had some good friends on. We missed Ben Stout, so we look forward to having him back on the next show. We obviously will not be recording next Monday night because it's Christmas Day, and I'm giving the guys a day off. So we'll talk internally whether we actually do a show earlier in the week or not. I'm going to imagine with the bowl game, we may do one Tuesday or Wednesday if everybody's up to it. But we'll let you guys know. So stay tuned. Josh has got a lot more, and Nobra have been working really hard on our shorts. So those shorts, there's more shorts that are out there for your listening and viewing enjoyment. Thank you for your support. Continue to like, follow, subscribe. Make sure you're recommending us on the audio platforms. That goes a long way with Apple and a few of the other platforms. We see you. We appreciate you. And of course, if you have any suggestions on how to make this show better, we're always open to suggestions. So thank you so much, team. Thank you to everyone as we head into the holiday season. I hope you have a great time with your families. And as always, we appreciate you. And go Knights.
Charge on.
John.
I should not say anything, should I? Because you're just going to tell